until 5 p.m. here on 98.5 The Sports Hub. I got to say, even in a loss, Jake, I liked what I saw. I'm at that point now where, like, I used to watch them lose games and go, oh, they found a way to lose that game. They found a way to make that a nightmare. That game, like, they had some fight. And we've now graduated to that point, in my opinion, Jake, where you look at how they lose and you go, you know what? I like the fight, though, versus finding ways to lose games. Now, Bennett, the struggles late definitely hurt, but overall, I thought they're going to lose some games, but they went down fighting. They made it, not quite close, but they made it a game late, and that's the total inverse of what I thought we'd be talking about 2 months ago this time.
No, absolutely. I think when you looked at this team before this run, maybe pre-end of June, you're going to say, oh, they lose this game, it's a blowout. They probably lose this series, and it's just rock bottom, and you're laughing at them as they find different ways to lose. And what I kind of realized yesterday as I'm watching this game, and bottom of the ninth inning, they have bases loaded, 2 outs, and you're sitting there going, oh, here it comes. Here's the home run, or here's the base hit that's going to open this game open, and they're going to somehow tie this game and run away with it. Now, that didn't happen, so I guess in some ways, the fact of the matter is that the hope is there for this team, is that you were anticipating something to happen besides just them losing, whereas any time before it would have been a 1-2-3 ninth inning, and we'd be sitting here not even talking about this game because, oh yeah, the Red Sox lost in the game. Yep, that's typical Red Sox this year. And it's just crazy to me, the growth of where this team was just a few months ago. So now we're talking about, I saw people last week saying, oh yeah, World Series preview between the Dodgers and Red Sox. I'm sorry, what?
Right.
It's just an insane 2-month turnaround that we're talking about the World Series when we were all sitting here saying, oh yeah, their season's over, they're not going to do anything. And now they're talking about postseason, they're making moves at the deadline, which was refreshing to see. All of it's just a way of saying that it does feel like this is a, dare I say, new era of Red Sox baseball, just from where we were 2 months ago talking about this team.
Oh, 100%. And it is funny. I think that you kept thinking that comeback was going to happen on Saturday because of all the comebacks that happened on Thursday against the White Sox, where it felt like no matter what Chicago did, the Red Sox had a response, right? And that's the true, I think, metal of a quality baseball team, a quality team in any sport, is that you can keep coming back when you're up against it, or you get a bad break here or there, you're not quite on top of things, and you find a way to eke it out. And that's something this team has been really good at. I think like there are teams that when they make comebacks, they're kind of front runners, right? And you're like, yeah, they're having a good run here, but they're really not being challenged, or they're not answering when they get punched back in the face. I think there are countless teams that we've seen here in Boston, whether it's been the 21 Patriots or the Bruins during their record-breaking year, the Celtics a year ago, 2 years ago perhaps, where they were good, but when they got tested, when they got punched, when they faced some adversity, were they able to respond in the way you got to respond? And so I do feel like this Red Sox team has been really good. And there's a mix here of really good at responding and the horseshoe just being so far up their backside that they're able to basically pull out anything. But I think to our point, what Saturday's loss comes back to is the believability of this team right now. And I'm walking away from every game, Jake, win or lose, going, this team could make noise. They could make noise in the playoffs. And part of that's the American League, I know, but they have really done a tremendous job, in my opinion, of sort of zapping that, oh, whatever, they're going to lose anyway. Like, I'm having a harder time as I watch the rest of the AL saying, oh, no, they're not first-round fodder. They might actually be able to go on a deep run here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it all goes back to what this run built to this team. Not only the belief that the players have for each other in the clubhouse, but what the fan base and what we've all kind of perceived this team to be is that you're now looking at everything and saying, best case scenario, this is what's going to happen. Instead, it was always before, no, they're not going to do anything, and this is the worst case scenario because this is just not their year, and they're playing terrible. They didn't set everything up. They fired the manager a month into the year. Like, what kind of teams have we seen in just all of sports fire their head coach or manager at the early point of the season and completely turn around to be a legitimate threat to make a deep postseason run? It doesn't happen. So I think that the Red Sox, Chad Tracy, I call it with Andy Hart, we were on a few weeks ago, I said the try hard Tracy Red Sox, because this is what it is. They play hard, and they're so easy to root for, especially guys like Caleb Durbin, who struggled so much early in the season. They get rid of Driveline. He goes out of the organization, finds a hitting coach, and he finally is starting to put it together. And you're generally sitting there rooting for this guy because it's such a good story of him struggling. He finds his way in the middle of the year and now has become an incredible piece to a team that is just progressing and making strides toward being a legit team in the American League, which would have just been unfathomable to not even say, but to even think about that even two to 3 months ago.
Yeah, and it's a great point about Durbin. I would also include Andrew Monasterio in that as well. Another guy that, I remember the first thought that I had about Andrew Monasterio was that he had a challenge back in April that was like the worst challenge I've ever seen in my entire life, where the ball could not have been more down the middle, and he did the ABS challenge, and I was like, who is this bozo, and what is he doing right now? And it feels like he's now become, he's definitely become one of the hottest hitters in baseball. And, they go out at the deadline, and Jake, this is what I like about this team. They go out at the deadline, and they make a move. Now, it's not the sexiest move. Rutschman is Adley Rutschman is a fantastic catcher when he's healthy. The problem is being healthy. He's been on the IL 5 times now since the start of the 2025 season. But they go out and they get that player, and they don't win the deadline, but you don't have that hangover that was hanging over this team every time they didn't win the deadline under Alex Cora. Did you notice this, that when they wouldn't win the deadline under Cora, he would go up to the podium and be like, well, this is the team. This is the team. And he'd be kind of like pissy about it. And you're like, all right, well, now that's great. The captain's setting the tone right there. Everyone's mad now because they didn't get the best player available at the deadline. You can tell that there's some energy and some excitement when you bring in Rutschman, you bring in Eric Miller, you bring in Eli White, who I know didn't have a great game on Saturday, but you bring him in. Like, there's an excitement about the guys they're bringing in versus like, we didn't win the deadline, so what's the point? Like, I just feel like there's a different energy to your point as well with this team right now.
Well, right, and what's surprising about that is what changed, because Craig Breslow was here from prior years with Cora was here, and we saw them kind of quit, and Cora would be all down in the bums about it in the press conference. Now all of a sudden it's a little bit different. So was it did the manager change that did it, or do the players finally have belief because they made moves? Like, that to me was always going to be interesting to see how they handled the deadline, because if they didn't make moves, was the team just going to quit, or is the run going to keep on going? And we won't know the answer to that because they went out and made moves and better the team, which they deserve credit for, because how many times have we sat here in the last 10 years and said, make a move, they got to do something, and they don't do it. So I just think that the Red Sox, they should get their credit for that. At the same time, just remember, this is what it should have been for the last 5 to 8 years. That we shouldn't have ever had to sit here and talk about how bad it was. Why didn't they make a move? When you're the Boston Red Sox, should be like the floor, dealing with this season and what has gone through in terms of the last 2 months, not the April and May, but this summer. This is the floor. And I just think Red Sox fans have been so craving for baseball and for it to be a good product, that I don't want that to get lost in all this too. Is that, yes, they deserve credit because they're doing well and the team is fun to watch and they're an easy team to root for, but don't lose sight in the picture of this is what it should have always been, and that they do deserve a lot of criticism for not being this team over the last 5 to 8 years.
100%. And that's, that is where I think experiencing this right now and experiencing the last month, 2 months of baseball is making you go, why did we ever take a step away from this? Why did we ever say, like, no, we got to replenish this, we got to replenish that? Like, baseball meaning something in Boston in the summer is just a different energy. Like, I live near Fenway, and so, like, it's really interesting to kind of walk around and you just feel the energy back. It's the first time, I think, really since I've lived in that area and really spent my free time in that area where you kind of feel the energy of the fans walking around. So it's really interesting, and I love it. It means something. It means something to the city, to this fan base, and it's happy to see. I'm happy. Listen, I'm happy for Tyler Milliken right now. There were too many times where both he and I were walking in this building, and I was saying to him, like, "Man, our teams suck, huh? Like, you know what I mean? Like we deserve better, man. We don't want to deal with this." Anyway, 617-779-0985. We're taking your calls up till 5 p.m. We're gonna talk Red Sox. We're gonna talk everything. It's a Sunday. Jake, I have a pretty standard sort of setting for Sunday shows. We throw the balls on the field, and whatever you want to talk about is whatever we're going to talk about. So if you like the Red Sox and you're a believer in why they're going to win, I want to hear from you. If you don't like the Red Sox and you're going to tell me they're going to lose in the wild card round, I want to hear from you just as well. So again, 617-779-0985. It is Jake Seymour. It is Ty Anderson. Take it up till 5 p.m. here on the Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Studios. It's a little Sunday show for you. I almost said the hockey show. That's how long it's been since I've been doing this. Oh, my goodness. It is not the hockey show. I am Ty Anderson, but it's not the hockey show. With me here is Jake Seymour. We're taking up till 5 p.m. here on 98.5 The Sports Hub, talking Red Sox out of the gate here. Hottest team in baseball. They make the trade this past week for Adley Rutschman. And I feel like the immediate reaction was, ooh, that's a haul. And I don't think that's wrong. I think that's the correct opinion, right? They gave up, I think, 3 of their top 6 prospects in that trade, including their top 2 pitching prospects. I am here, Jake, to tell you, I don't care. I don't care about prospects. How many times are we going to do this before you want to hoard your prospects? You want to be the grouchy 5-year-old not sharing his toys? But no, these are my blocks. You can't have these. That's my action figure. No, I want that. Like, you got to trade. You got to trade something to get something. And I think to capitalize on the momentum, the juice, everything we're talking about here with the Boston Red Sox, Jake, I am okay getting rid of guys that, a year ago I didn't even know existed. I think I'm okay with that because you just can't hoard prospects forever, and you gotta give up something to get something. To address the catcher position, I was totally on board with, and so it's a lot, yeah, sure. It's also could be absolutely nothing at the same time.
Yeah, I was happy they moved the prospect. I'll start there because it's kind of like fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And when people were saying that with the prospects, they gave out too many prospects. Well, you can't be mad at the team for not doing anything and hoarding these prospects. And then when they go out and make a trade to get rid of the prospects to bring in talent, say, "Oh, you paid too much. It's not enough prospects." That to me, I'm out on that. Not going to listen to that. I will say, though, I was confused that it was catchers they went with because everyone was telling me before the deadline they need a shortstop, and they didn't do that. And they prioritized catching. And the other thing that they did at the deadline, which I commend them for, and that it was a great move, I think, is they got rid of Marcelo Meyer. Mm-hmm. And to me, that is the cultural shift. And that for whatever reason, ownership, Craig Breslow, something changed with that group. And then they decided that it's okay for us to move off the prospect. It's okay for us to move off young talent and invest in the team right now and even in the near future. And that's okay for us to do so. Something changed. I'm curious to see if that gets reported out as the season progresses and when we hit the offseason, if we've learned what that was. Because getting rid of Marcelo Meyer, he's the perfect example of what happens when prospects go wrong. He has not signed the contract, and the Red Sox want all the young people to sign. So he's already kind of in the doghouse for that. And on top of that, he hasn't performed well. And Roman Anthony, there was obviously people who mentioned that maybe some off the field things that have gone on in terms of them hanging out too much, doing too much of like the partying, I guess you could call it, and not focusing on baseball. They sent Roman Anthony down to Florida. Was there some kind of connection about why that had to happen? So I think it shows the cultural mind shift that they're happening right now with the young prospects, and that to me is promising, especially considering if Roman Anthony does come back this season and where this Red Sox team can go with a healthy, productive Roman Anthony.
Yeah, and Marcelo Meyer, I mean, that might be one of the greatest disappointments probably in recent Red Sox history. Definitely probably tops in the 21st century of Red Sox baseball. I just feel like this was a player that we had heard about for years, about how he was the future shortstop. He was going to help, alleviate the pain of walking away from Xander Bogaerts and trading Mookie Betts. And, you got Meyer coming up. He's part of that young core. And he was just never felt like a ball player. And I know that's something that Felger would say. He just looks like a ball player. And that was probably the believe it or not, that with all the hockey takes we disagree with, that was one of the biggest takes that Felger had that I was like, I don't see that at all. Marcelo Meyer always felt like that AAU player who didn't want to play hurt, didn't really want to play in anything other than ideal conditions, didn't really have the attitude you need to win baseball games. Like, he didn't have that, I hate this term, but that dirt dog mentality, right? That, like, I'm going to get down and dirty here. We're going to have a good game. Like, because I think dirt dog is like another way of saying, yeah, you kind of suck, and that's okay, but, like, you try hard, but I just felt like he never had that intangible quality that you want for this team, right? Like, Marcelo Meyer fits the $280 million payroll Boston Red Sox that didn't want to play night games, didn't want to play doubleheaders. They wanted their days off. Like, he would have been a perfect fit for that 2011 team that everyone hated. Like, he would have been a starring member of that team. For this team in this era and this attitude of what they want to be, he clearly didn't fit. And to your point about, the prospects in general, right? Marcelo Meyer had been their top-ranked prospect for the last 4 years. So if we're going to sit here and go, they're trading the top-ranked prospects, I'm going to go, yeah, sure, I'd rather do that now than by the time they discover Flight Club down at Seaport and don't want to play baseball anymore. Like, I'm cool with that. Hey, you want to play baseball? No, I'm going to the Grand tonight. I want to go dance with some bottle girls. Like, no. Like, you have to play baseball. And so I'm cool with that trade. I understand, though, the Red Sox point of view. Like, who's the last prospect they've traded? I'm putting us both on the spot here. And, Jeff, you can chime in, too. You got the Red Sox hat on, so you probably know better than me. Who's the last prospect they traded that, like, became a superstar? And no, you can't say Jeff Bagwell, because everyone says Jeff Bagwell, and that's now 35 years old. Like, who's the last prospect they traded that became a legit player that you're like, I can't believe they traded that guy? Who is it?
I'm looking at an old ESPN article from 2011, and there's not a lot of guys on here who I'm saying. Oh, maybe Anthony Rizzo, but he was drafted so late,
right?
That.
And then he moved organizations again after that.
So can you put that on them? Because it wasn't like he was a first-round pick when in the top 5 like Marcelo Meyer. So maybe that's the one you look at. But, I mean, still, like I said, he was drafted so late. He was a lottery ticket. That wasn't a gemstone that you thought you had.
And I remember, people were freaking out when the Red Sox traded Yohan Moncada and Michael Kopech for Chris Sale. That worked out. And that's okay. I think we overrate prospects because they're a lottery ticket. The lottery ticket could be worth $1 billion. It could be worth absolutely nothing and be a paperweight. And so I do feel like you got to trade something to get something. You look at where they were with catcher. Rutschman is not perfect, obviously. We talked about in the first segment, the injuries. This year alone, he's had an ankle injury, he's had a concussion, and now he had the wrist injury. And if you saw when the wrist injury happened, it was a scary-looking thing. He just swings the bat. And his wrist just goes weak, basically. And you're like, whoa, that didn't look good. But he plays a rehab assignment in Worcester yesterday. I think it was Worcester, right? Was it Worcester or Portland? I think it
was Worcester.
Yeah, so he goes 1 for 2 down there, has a double, knocks in 2 runs. So that's a positive. He can swing a bat still effectively. Granted, AAA pitching, but nevertheless. But again, you look at where the Red Sox were, production from the catcher position. There's only a few teams that have had worse production from that spot in 2026 than Boston. And I know Connor Wong had a little bit of a hot run here, has been on a little bit of a hot run. But if you looked at their production by WAR, by average, hits as a whole, they're bottom 6 in the league. And only the Yankees have really been worse in that regard. And you beat the Yankees to get Rutschman. So there's value in that too, in my opinion. And so I think that it's really interesting because we looked at the deadline and we saw like, oh, Jeremy Pena. Oh, I like that. Otto Lopez, love that. And you kind of said shortstop. But I do think catcher was also a sneaky need for this team.
Yeah, it was. It just wasn't being talked about. And I just think that everyone was just saying shortstop, that it made it feel like if they didn't get a shortstop, the deadline was going to be a bust. And it obviously wasn't. They did well, and the team worked out. And seems like everything's now moving in the right direction in terms of adding, and we're not seeing that deadline slump like we've seen with previous Alex Cora-led teams. Not that this is Alex Cora team now, but you get my point. So I just think overall it just shows that this is what the Red Sox, it's kind of a microcosm of the season, is instead of last night watching and saying, how are they going to lose this game? Oh, here they go. They're going to go 1, 2, 3 in the 9th inning and quit, and you're going to have all the sad NESN post-game segments and the presser sound bites. Instead it was, oh, they're going to win this game. You're confident about that. And then the deadline, they have the deadline and they make the deals, and the Curtis Mead trade the week before, actively pursuing something before the final moments of the deadline. It just shows that there's some kind of change that happened. And that's the one thing I'll just go back to, is that this is a different mentality for this Red Sox team. Do you see John Henry cheering in his owner's suite? His wife, Linda, had posted videos of the White Sox game, the one where they came back in the extra innings and won the game. And you can hear John Henry cheering. I saw Cotillo tweeted out. He's like, go to her Instagram and look at the videos. And sure enough, if you put on full blast, John Henry's sitting there and you can hear him screaming and hooting and hollering, having a good time. Something changed. Ty, something is different with this ownership group, that they're now fully invested. I'd be curious too, what's going on with Liverpool? Did that money get reallocated back to the Red Sox? Did that toy become not as fun anymore? So you went, let me go back to this toy. I had a lot of fun with this toy before I got Liverpool. So let's go have some fun with the Red Sox.
Oh, I'm sure we can find their message boards, and they hate John Henry. The NBA team he buys is probably going to hate him too eventually. But right now, things are good. And I think this is sort of maybe the lesson to your point of like what's changed. Maybe they realize that their ballpark can be more than a tourist attraction in the summer for fans of the Toronto Blue Jays and the Kansas City Royals and the St. Louis Cardinals, like, and the Chicago Cubs, that are coming here in the end of September. Now those tickets are a lot harder to get than they were 2 months ago, by the way. Not trying to buy them or anything. Anyway, no, but it's a great point. I think it's a great point that they maybe perhaps realize that the Red Sox should always be the top investment of Fenway Sports Group. Fenway Sports Group should always be heavily invested in the Boston Red Sox. Everything else should be a bonus. I get it. There's more money in the Premier League. There's more money to be had by winning a soccer trophy in Europe. But when you got your baseball team and you allocate resources to it and you spend on it, good things happen. Clearly, the energy around the team and around the stadium and around the city is in a much different place than it was. I mean, think about this, man. 3 years ago, I saw an entire stadium essentially bully John Henry into signing Rafael Devers. He got booed at the Winter Classic, and I was like, oh man, this is ugly. He's getting booed in his own building at a hockey game, not even a baseball game. And it was just like, oh my goodness, this is happening to him. So I said this, we did a show, Matt Dolph and I, earlier in the summer, and I posed the question of, who has the best chance of winning a championship, or who do you have the most confidence in winning a championship? Like, based on the head coach, the GM, and the owner. And I was like, you got to only factor in those three things: the head coach, the GM, and the owner. And he said Patriots, and I said Red Sox. I said the Red Sox, despite it being Breslow and an interim manager, because I said never forget that John Henry has FU money, where if he gets mad enough and you bully him enough and you write crap about him enough, he's going to say, oh yeah, you think I'm this? You think I'm that? All right, here you go. Suck on this, and then he makes a move, and that's it. And it does feel like he's sort of done that. I think to a large degree here, where he said, "Forget the prospects, trade the prospects, help me out now, buy in now. Like I like this team, I like these players. Let's see what we got here." And so I like that part of it.
I just don't understand why he couldn't have done this before. Like in 23, was it, when they got Schwarber, and that team looked really good coming off that. I felt like they were building to something. Even last year, too, at the conclusion of that year, it really did feel like that team was growing and developing. Alex Bregman was here. It felt like he was going to be a mainstay in this Red Sox franchise for the next few years, and they decided not to invest in that. So John Henry's having fun now. It seems like that. Maybe that's the change, is that he wanted to have fun. He was enjoyed the season, and he said, I'm going to spend the money on it, and we're going to make this team as good as we can make it.
I do wonder, if to a certain degree, if the realization that you can't put the entire franchise on younger players has hit for him in terms of, listen, I loved what we saw from Peyton Tolley a year ago and Connolly Early a year ago. I thought they were some nice late season surprises, but you bring in Ron Suarez and you're like, oh man, he can pitch. You bring in Sonny Gray and you see, oh, he's a battler. This is good. I think bringing those players in has allowed Peyton Tolley to really thrive as a number. He is basically a number 2, number 3, but in the rotation, he's a number 4 because of everything else they've done. And, Roman Anthony, I think they put too much on his plate out of the gate when you walk away from Bregman and you don't get that big bat and you just say, all right, yeah, Roman Anthony, it's your time now. I do think that when you have the better support staff and you have a mix of veterans and younger players, you tend to get the best results. And maybe that's something that Henry has realized again, where, oh yeah, we used to have these teams that did have, the older players, but we also, we put Bogarts in the right spot. We put Betts in the right spot. And then when they were ready, we gave them the keys to the franchise, right? Like, this may be them realizing that you can't just go so far in either direction and think you're going to win baseball games.
You can't force it to happen. You can't just force leadership on no player. He almost has to earn it from his peers and in the clubhouse. And I think you saw that, like, in the beginning of this year, if I said to you, who's the leader of the Red Sox, you would have said Roman Anthony. Probably. That's what the team was telling you. I think now if you look at it, you probably say Wilson Contreras. And that he's leading the clubhouse and the players are really rallying behind him. And that, to me, is a good example of what you're kind of saying, is you have to let everything happen and just feel like adding where you feel is necessary, not trying to force an addition. And that's going to be the most interesting part, is that when Roman Anthony comes back, when Garrett Crochet comes back, two players who you should believe are impact players who are going to make a big difference. Do they get with the program? Does something change? Is that a negative? Because right now this team's gelled all summer, and those are going to be two impact players that have not been part of that gelling process. So I'm curious, Does that have any negative implications? Do they just work together? How does Roman Anthony feel about Marcelo Meyer being traded? We really haven't heard that yet.
Right.
Is he upset? Does that go across his ass? I don't know. But those are all things that the Red Sox have to deal with as they progress into October.
617-779-0985. Got a few on the phone lines here. We're going to take a quick break and then right to your calls here. It is Ty Anderson and Jake Seymour taking up till 5 p.m. here on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports.
Live from the Town Fair Tire Studios. It is Ty Anderson and Jake Seymour taking you up until 5 p.m. here on this beautiful day. Little hot, little muggy. That's all right. It's good, though. It's good for you.
Is it?
I mean, I don't know. I got to tell myself that you love this weather because then in January when the wind hurts your face, you're like, you know what I could go for? Some nice 88-degree muggy weather right now. That's how I feel anyway.
So I would take that. I don't complain about the winter because I like the winter and the cold. Mm-hmm. So I have a right to complain about the summer.
That's fair.
When there's a blizzard, I don't complain that it's cold. I don't complain that it snowed. I have to No, I don't mind that. But when it's muggy outside and I have to do stuff, no. I'm very upset about that.
That's fair.
Shovel heat.
Exactly.
I mean, listen, I have a driveway again, which I didn't have for a very long time. I lived in an apartment building for a while, and I kind of forgot how much I hate shoveling. And we had one of those blizzards this past year where it was kind of reminiscent of 2015, where it just kept happening every 2 days, and you're like, hey, so enough. I don't like this. Please stop. And you kind of realize how much I had a newfound hatred for winter when once that happened, because I was like, man, do I hate shoveling this driveway.
I invested in a snowblower, and it's so life changing.
I was gonna say you
makes you enjoy the winter.
Well, so I ended up this past winter when we got like 3 snowstorms in a span of like 11 days, whatever it was. After the third one, I just texted the guy that I rent from, and I was like, can you bring like a plow through or something? Like, and I'll just I was like, I can't. I'm leaving town tomorrow. This was around the Stadium Series, and I was leaving town. I'm not gonna make my girlfriend shovel an entire driveway. And I was like, can you bring out a plow here, and I'll just shovel all the remnants out? And he's like, oh yeah, I got you. I'm like, thank you. That's all I need. So. I will take this over 10 degrees and wind hitting me in the face every day in January. I really will. I'd rather be sweaty than cold. That's a real thing. I can get a cold drink.
No pun intended.
What's that?
That's a hot take, and that's no pun intended.
I mean, hey, I can listen. If I'm hot, I can cool down. If I'm cold, warming up takes longer. Warming up takes longer when you're cold. So I will always say that I'd rather be hot than be freezing. That's just how I feel. But I get it. We all got tastes.
But if you're cold, you just run around, do some jumping jacks. You're going to warm up fine.
No one's running around when it's icy and 10 degrees out, Jake. That's crazy talk.
You can put a heated blanket on if you're home. You can put on a jacket, more hoodies, more beanies, whatever you got. Put something on. You're going to be okay. In the heat, you can only take off so many layers.
That's true. I find that my shower consumption goes up a lot in the summer.
Yeah, okay, so that's an interesting point. What's better, a hot shower on a cold day or a cold shower on a hot day?
Oh, that's a great topic. That's a great this or that. You should tell them for that. Hot shower on a cold day. Because your skin it dries out your skin, which is not ideal, but you just feel really good. But there's also that flip side where if you're too cold and you take that hot shower, now you're itchy. You know that feeling where you're like, you come in from it's cold, you immediately put on hot water, you wash your hands.
It's like
all of a sudden,
needles almost.
Yeah, your hands are like itchy. You're like, I want to rip my fingers off right now. I don't love this right now. I'm not loving this. Anyway, 617-779-0985. Like I said, we're taking your calls up until 5 p.m. Whatever you want to talk about. Itchy fingers, the Red Sox, Adley Rutschman, how prospects don't really matter. I'm having a hard time finding a prospect they've traded that's become like a star player in the 21st century, besides Anthony Rizzo, who again went from San Diego to Chicago. Didn't go from Boston to San Diego and become an all-star. Had to go from San Diego to Chicago to then become the player that he was. It's really hard to find a guy they've moved on from. Again, this is just me right now. So if you got him, call him and let me know. And I'm talking like legit 3-time all-star like Adley Rutschman is, who they're getting while battered, but still in the prime of his career. 28 years old, should be an impactful player, has one more year of team control after this. So it's not a rental. This isn't Javi Lopez coming over when he's 35 years old from the Orioles and playing 16 games and being terrible. This is a player that should be here for a little while. And so I like that trade. I make that trade every day of the week. And again, I mentioned it earlier. Your prospect rankings. These are your top 5 prospects going back to 2021. Your top 5 prospects in 2021 were Tristan Casas, Jeter Downs, Bobby Dahlbeck, Jarren Duran, and Brian Mata. I wouldn't care if you traded any of those players, and you did trade one or two of those players, right? 2022, Marcelo Myers, your top prospect. Tristan Casas, number 2. Nick York is number 3. Jarren Duran is number 4. Brian Bayo is number 5. Out of that group of 5, 2 players are on your team right now. Tristan Casas, who knows when we're going to see him again, if ever. Just had wrist surgery as well, on top of recovering from the knee injury. 2023, your top 5 prospects are Mikey Romero, number 5, Mikel Blige at number 4, Cedar Rafaela at 3, Tristan Casas at 2, Marcelo Meyer at 1. The only guy I wouldn't want to trade in that group is Cedar Rafaela.
I agree.
2024, your top 5 are Bly, Rafaela, Teal, Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer. The point here is that you can fall in love with prospects if you want. The odds of that player becoming an all-star, though, based on those numbers I just told you, what was that, 18 players basically over a 4-year span? Jarren Duran was a one-time all-star. Cedar Rafaela is a one-time all-star. You traded prospects to bring in a 3-time all-star. I take that bet. I just take that bet. That's how I feel.
No, I agree with you. The Red Sox should be acquiring talent. They should be hoarding talent that's proven at the big league level, not hoarding prospects and hoarding lottery tickets. When you have let's compare it to economics, right? When the middle class person, when they want to get rich and they want to try something, you buy lottery tickets. You try your luck. That's what the lottery system is built on. The guy who already has millions of dollars, he's not buying scratchers. That's for people who don't have the $1 million and they want the lifeline to try their chances, try their odds at hitting that big $1 million ticket. The Boston Red Sox is the guy who owns all the businesses, has all the money, and he's in the top of the 1%. So they don't need any of these prospects. They need to be acquiring and hoarding big league talent. So you can list any prospect on that list. I would have traded them all if it was getting me somebody who could be an impact player at the big league level, would be multiple-time all-star like Garrett Crochet. Mm-hmm. You're going to keep prospects, and you'd rather keep those guys together than trading for Garrett Crochet. I know this year it's been a little iffy considering he's been out for so long, and we don't know if he's going to come back this year. But last year, Garrett Crochet, you would rather not have that player in your team? I would take that guy every chance of the week. I could. I really would. So that's where I just always go back to is any of these prospects, if you look at other guys in the league and you could trade for them, would you do it? And I think 9 times out of 10 for these all-star players who are high-caliber players, you're going to say, yep, I'd trade for him. I would give up this prospect, and this guy if it meant I could get Garrett Crochet on my roster or Alex Bregman on my roster. That's what the Red Sox need to be doing, not saying we're going to keep all this talent or prospects should say, and hope that eventually it becomes big league talent.
Yeah, and I think you can be a GM that accomplishes both. I think the Dodgers are and I think the Red Sox before them, and even the Cubs under Theo were great examples of teams that could develop players and also make big ticket signings and big ticket additions. And there's nothing in the universe that says you can't do both, right? And I think the Red Sox are inching more towards being a team that tries to do both again, which is, again, like I said earlier, when they're at their best, is that they're a team that can develop but also make additions because their bankroll and their wallet is fatter than everyone else's for that matter. Why would you bring in a guy to try to run you like the Rays and the Pirates when you have the assets to be better than that, right? And you look at the Cardinals, right? The Cardinals gave you Wilson Contreras and they gave you Sonny Gray. And you look at what the Red Sox gave up. They gave up their top pitching prospect at the time who hasn't played this year. He's pitched like 5 innings and then got shut down. You look at everything they gave up to the Cardinals to make those trades, to get Sonny Gray, a pitcher who's 14-2 this year, and Wilson Contreras. So you said, and I agree, is their MVP, their leader. He's been their best hitter all year. They gave up peanuts to get those players. They gave up lottery tickets, and then they scratched them. They're like, oh, these are worth $2. That's fine, but it's paid off for the Boston Red Sox. And so I think guys like Chaim Bloom, I think he got too much grief to a certain degree because he did bring in some prospects and draft some prospects that have become players for this team. But I think that idea of, we just need prospects. You're ultimately building for a future that may or may not come. And I feel like we had enough of a sample size to kind of say, yeah, you got some players, but not 26. You can't do it that way. You got to bring in some other pieces. And so I like what they did. I like the risk. I hate when you GM scared, whether it's baseball, hockey, football, basketball. I hate when you GM scared because I think that's the quickest way to get absolutely nowhere. It just is. And you can say, well, look at this prospect. Look at this guy. I'd rather have the known commodity. I was saying it when, and I know I'm crossing leagues entirely here, but when the Bruins traded for J.J. Peterka, I said, well, the best case scenario, the guy that they just the pick they traded is as good as J.J. Peterka, so I'm cool with that. Like, that's the best case scenario. And if that pick ends up becoming David Pastrnak, well, then no one saw that coming because guess what? 24 other teams passed on that player at 25 overall. So, like, what's the big deal, really? Anyway, that's how I feel about it. But I'm curious when you see Rutschman on the Boston Red Sox. And when you see Roman Anthony on the Boston Red Sox, because to your point, Jake, you mentioned it earlier, like, this team is rolling right now, and you try to bring in a guy who's working his way back. How patient can you be? How patient can you be? Because you're not in first place still. You're still fighting for a playoff spot. You're in there comfortably, but you do want to avoid a situation where you've lost 6 out of 10 because you're trying to reintegrate 3 players, perhaps, between Anthony, Story, and Rutschman. Like, that's something that they're going to have to manage here as well, I think.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. And managing that and having guys who understand that maybe their roles have changed. Like Garrett Crochet, we all know last year he was the ace. Is this year, is he going to be your ace pitcher? Can you just be inserted into that? I think he has to earn that in a lot of ways. That title has to be earned, not given to players like him. Can Roman Anthony, can he come back and provide a spark and do what he was doing before All-Star? And do they use him as a DH, maybe even still, and not have him out in the field, not to mess with the outfield chemistry and what been built there? These are all things that Trad Tracy has to work through, and Craig Breslow as well. And that's the most concerning part to me, is that if these guys do come back and if they show interest to come back and they're ready to come back from a health standpoint, how do they do it? And if they're able to do it and add to this team and you kind of get an end of the season edition, this team's going to be very scary to watch come October, and they're going to be a threat to make a deep postseason run.
I'm so happy you brought up Crochet. I have a question for you about Garrett Crochet. We're going to get to that on the other side here. Again, 617-779-0985. It is Ty Anderson and Jake Seymour taking up till 5 p.m. here on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Sound Fair Tire Studios. It is Ty Anderson and Jake Seymour taking you up until 5 p.m. As I said, on this gorgeous Sunday afternoon. Boston Red Sox currently playing at Fenway. Oh, nice day game, Fenway in the summer. It's always good. Anyway, you brought up Garrett Crochet last segment, and I did want to ask you about Garrett Crochet. It has been since April 26th, I think, was his last start. His last appearance. Back then, supposed to miss just 1 or 2 starts. We are now on the verge of him missing 3 months, 3.5 months, 4 months. Nevertheless, if he does come back this year, are you opposed, Jake, to the idea of Garrett Crochet being perhaps not a long reliever by nature, but a guy who can come out of the bullpen and work 2 or 3 innings, or maybe 1 inning late in a game versus being the 5-inning, 6-inning starter? Because it does feel like we're running out of daylight to get him back to being built up to that level of production.
I wouldn't be opposed to that at all, especially with the Red Sox. The deadline, one of their priorities was bolstering their bullpen and bringing in arms to help support that. So if you can add Garrett Crochet and maybe you don't have enough time to stretch out his arm and get him back to what he was, not even what he was doing pitching 7-8 inning games, but getting to the 5 or 6 inning mark, yeah, put him in the bullpen. I think any version of Garrett Crochet, as long as there's no ego issues or anything of that nature, which I don't think there would be with Crochet. Doesn't strike me as, he's a very passionate person. Mm-hmm. I think oftentimes people confuse that with ego. He doesn't strike me as someone who would have an ego issue coming in. The one thing I will say on that, though, and maybe to kind of contradict that, is does an ace pitcher go into the bullpen? Like, is that something that he would welcome for his career? Because what happens if the Red Sox just decide, oh, well, now we have this really great relief pitcher that we're going to use, and, Crochet's now a reliever. Maybe he's a little opposed to that, especially given where his stature was before he got injured. But he also, remember, too, he had a bad start. He didn't look good in the early moments of the season, and it was kind of responsible for a lot of the struggles the Red Sox had to start with. So maybe that's cleared up now that if he comes back and he's fully healthy. But I also wouldn't be opposed on that same breath, shut him down for the year. The Red Sox don't really need him, which is crazy to say because I just couldn't believe a year ago you was telling me that in 2026 the Red Sox do not need Garrett Crochet. Like, that would be
Right.
asinine to suggest. But if you had two guys and you could only pick one, Roman Anthony or Garrett Crochet to come back, you'd probably pick Roman Anthony because he'd be more value add than Garrett Crochet would be.
Yeah, I find it interesting that they went out and they acquired Eric Miller, and they did that because they said, we're using Giovanni Moran a lot, and we're using him in a lot of high leverage situations. Right before, I think it was the final game of the Dodger series, Chad Tracy came out and said, "Yeah, we got to really ease back on Garrett Whitlock here. We're running the risk of him having a dead arm here because we're just using him so much." And so I do wonder. That's why I wonder about Crochet. And I know Crochet's a lefty and Whitlock's a righty, but if you can have perhaps two, long arms out of the pen, let's call them, between Bayo, who's been really productive in that role, and Crochet. These are two guys that we agree are starters for this team, but right now they may be thrust into that role. Like, does that preserve the arms of Giovanni Moran? Does that preserve the arm of Garrett Crochet? Does that allow you, Garrett Whitlock, rather. Does that allow you to get more out of your pitching staff as a whole, right? And again, the reason why I'm wondering about this is I just wonder if, can you get Crochet's arm up to being capable of 5-6 innings at this point in the year? He hasn't pitched, to your point. And before he's also an unknown too, where like the velo was down and the location was iffy, and that's why he was getting hammered out of the gate. The velo was a little bit better right before he went on the IL, if I remember correctly, but it's been a problem all year, right? So I just wonder if there's a possibility here where they say, we're going to bring him back, but like if he's coming back, it's in this role. And to your point, does he accept that? I imagine he would. Chris Sale did, and Chris Sale was a much more accomplished pitcher at that point in his career, but he said, hey, I'm playing hurt right now, so I got to do whatever I can to get on the mound. It does feel like Crochet's a battler and would just want to be on the mound. It's just, can you build up that arm between now and the end of September?
Yeah, and I just think it takes so long for pitchers, especially to get back into playing shape and get back into stretching that arm out, that putting him in the reliever spot does make a lot of sense, only if he accepts it and you feel like it wouldn't impact anything else around you. But Garrett Crochet coming out of the bullpen for the Red Sox in October, I don't know if you can get much better than that.
I mean, think about the power that you would have coming out of that pen between Crochet, between Miller, between Chapman. Like, you got a lot of velocity coming out of that pen when it's cold and miserable and it hurts to swing the bat. That may be an advantage for the Boston Red Sox that they have to explore here. Again, 617-779-0985. Let's get a quick check of the headlines here with Jake and then straight back to it. I want to switch gears a little bit when we come back. We got the Patriots' first preseason game happening. We got training camp underway, so we're going to touch on that. But again, quick check of the headlines here with Jake and then right back to it here on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
From the Delaware Tiger Studios, this is Boston's home for sports. Touchdown! The flagship station of the Patriots, Bruins, the Celtics, WBCFM and HD Boston 98.5, The Sports Hub. Beasley Media Group station celebrating 65 years of broadcasting. Sports Hub headlines.
Red Sox right now lead the Athletics 3-2 at Fenway Park. Bottom of the fifth inning, runners on the corner and 2 outs. Monastero at bat. We'll monitor that, see what happens before the end of the headlines. But sad news today out of the NBA. Don Nelson died today at 86 years old. The Celtics legend has his number 19 retired at the Garden and is the second winningest coach in NBA history. And Detroit Lions veteran quarterback Teddy Bridgewater has decided to step away from the team at mid-training camp and was officially placed on the reserve/retired list ahead of Sunday's practice. Sports Up headlines are brought to you by Boston Prolotherapy. Don't let joint pain keep you off the court, course, or trail. Eliminate the pain with Dr. Franchi of Boston Prolotherapy. I'm Jake Seymour for Boston's Home for Sports, 98.5 The Sports Hub. Next update at 4.
This is what happens when analysts take over the game, take over the sport.
This is where you talk sports.
It happens all the time.
The Sports Hub. When it comes to Boston sports, we're fans just like you. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Down Fair Tire Studios, Jake Seymour, Ty Anderson, take it till 5 p.m. I'm going to keep saying it every time we come back. Got to let you know. Got to let you know when we're here, when we're not. Anyway, we spent the first hour talking Red Sox. A lot to get to with that team, but we got football around the corner, man. We got the first preseason game on Thursday. Got training camp well underway at Gillette. Things are getting spicy some days. I like that. It's always good. Good sign of a competitive football team when that happens. We got joint practices starting, so you know there's going to be like 3 fights a day, so that'll be good. UFC and football all in one. It's always nice. But really, when we talk about the Patriots, the year comes back down to Drake May. And I feel like every day I'm seeing a new ranking of Drake May. Oh, so-and-so has him the 8th best. So-and-so has him the 5th best. They don't even have ranked at all. Like, it's just every day there's a new Drake May ranking, like where he is in the the tiers of quarterbacks in the NFL. I want to open this by asking you, Jake Seymour, where do you think Drake May ranks in the NFL as far as quarterbacks go?
So I think I'm going to say he's top 7, top 6, because this tier thing goes, I get so aggravated with it, because who cares where this person and this person has him ranked? I know the poll from Sando at The Athletic, it was about executives and coaches and how they vote on, so that's value to me. But everyone on Twitter blowing up about, oh, you don't have Drake May in your top 4, he's a top 2 quarterback. I don't care what you think. I don't care what Twitter thinks. I don't care where anyone has him ranked outside of these NFL executives and the coaches. And I think it's fair to say that Drake May had a bad postseason, especially toward the end of it. And it didn't look good at a lot of moments. And there were moments where you said, oh, man, this is not the same guy. To the point where a lot of us were saying, is he hurt? Is he playing through something? And sure enough, he had a shoulder injury. So on one hand, I feel like some people will give passes to quarterbacks or players who are injured and their team doesn't win. But can we give credit to a player who was hurt yet the team overcame it? Like, is that more of a team thing, I guess, than the quarterback itself? So I don't know if that works negatively or positively against his ranking. But regardless, the Patriots made it to the Super Bowl. I know they lost the game, and that doesn't really, you don't hang AFC Championship banners at Gillette Stadium. But they got to the Super Bowl with an injured Drake May. Shouldn't that be a good thing? That, hey, now he's healthy, and they can get to have him be healthy and get to the point again next year. Shouldn't they, be all set and make another run for the Super Bowl? Like, why is everyone so upset about this? I don't get it.
Yeah, I think it's the fantasy footballification of football talk in general. That, well, he doesn't have enough points and he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. I think he's a really smart quarterback, and I think he was working with less than a full deck a year ago. I think if your go-to options in 2025 are Hunter Henry and Stephon Diggs, and no disrespect to those players, but if those are your go-to options and you have the year that he has, you're a damn good quarterback. You really are. And it is funny for me when I look at these lists and I see, they have... I do think that Josh Allen is probably number one. I just think his ability to create something out of nothing is really impressive, and you watch the way that he can impact the game. I do think he's probably the best quarterback in football when you combine the intelligence with the arm strength and the speed and the decision making. Like, I think he's really good. But I love when I look at these lists and I see Patrick Mahomes, who, if you watched him a year ago, was not a good quarterback a year ago. Straight up, I think he's a good quarterback as a whole. But if you look at where his game is going right now, it's hard for me to say, oh yeah, he's still top 3 quarterback in the league. I do think the legs are starting to fade on him a little bit as like a runner. I think Lamar is going the wrong way too, personally. So I think that I have a number 1 of Josh Allen, and then after that, I'm kind of like, there's a lot of guys that could really move between 2 and 7, between 2 and 6. I do think Drake May is in that category. But in terms of, it all comes back to, like, what do you consider important? I consider sustained drives, decision making, and versatility to be very important as a quarterback. I think especially with where this game is going, where this game is trending. And so that's why I like Drake May. Now, I like him a lot having A.J. Brown. I'm still have my questions about the offensive line, because sometimes you have a great quarterback who's behind a terrible offensive line, and we never know if that quarterback's any good.
Joe Burrow.
And I'm hit the point now, Jake, where I feel like I'm unfairly penalizing Joe Burrow in terms of my own rankings, because it's been 4 straight years now, it feels like, since Super Bowl appearance, where he has had to either run for his life or overcompensate for a really terrible defense that Cincinnati has had. And I've hit the point mentally now where I'm punishing him for that. And I'm almost looking past what he is as a quarterback, and that's not fair either. And so I do think it comes back to, like, what are the traits that you consider to be most important? And I do think that Drake May has the qualities that I like. I want to see more in the playoffs. I agree. But I also feel like he's still so young that what you saw a year ago should only get better. in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it could get worse, right? Not everything works in a linear progress. Like, he could have a terrible third year.
Right.
You want to call it like his real sophomore year, because the first year was just so incompetent on a lot of people's parts that maybe this is like the true sophomore year, especially second year McDaniels. And that should give you, I think, confidence too that he would be better, because McDaniels has tons of experience as an offensive coordinator in this league. But going to your point with Joe Burrow, and I'll also say this to Josh Allen, it's the argument of our wins and quarterback stat. Do you think wins should be an NFL quarterback stat? To which I say yes. So in some ways, you can make an argument that Joe Burrow is in some ways a better quarterback than Josh Allen, because at least Burrow got to the Super Bowl. Josh Allen has done squat in the playoffs. And I know a lot of that is Mahomes just had the better team and got the best of him. And we kind of said, I think, in the NFL, the general thought was once Mahomes kind of moves out of the way, and which was last year, Josh Allen, the Bills, will run up. And it was the Patriots who did it, of all teams. Mm-hmm. The one that had this dominance and beat on the Bills for all those years. Last year was the Bills' season. They should have won the Super Bowl. They should have at least won the AFC. I'll say that at least. They should have been the team representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. And the fact that Josh Allen came up short again, I think is a major detriment to him. To the point where I don't know if there's a better quarterback you can put as one, but that's a big glare on his legacy
for sure.
and what he's done, even if he is considered the best quarterback in the NFL at number one. I just can't get over the fact that Josh Allen is this generational talent who a lot of people think is great, and he's had good teams. He had good receivers. Stephon Diggs was there. They were good together, and he can't get over the hump. So explain that to me. How is Josh Allen, this great quarterback, going to go down as one of the best in the history of the sport, yet he can't get out of the AFC Conference Championship game? Like, that's where we're talking about this player?
Oh, it's totally
I don't get that.
No, it's totally fair. And if it's not going to be Allen, and if it's not going to be Mahomes, and I disagree with Mahomes being number one. I just do. I think 5 years ago he was absolutely a freak and he was number one, but I do think as he's getting older, his body is starting to fail him a little bit, and I do think his diet is starting to work against him a little bit as a quarterback who wants to play that way. I just feel like he's probably not number one. If it's not Josh Allen, if it's not Pat Mahomes, it's probably Matt Stafford. Right, that's the case of he's a veteran. He knows it's the Brady thing where he's seen it all. He knows all the defenses, and he has the best wide receiver in football, Puka Nacua. And before that, he had, I think, the best getting open and catching balls wide receiver in Cooper Kupp. So he's been really, I think he's greatly benefited from who he's played with at the same time. And so that's why, again, these rankings and these structures and these systems are just so difficult to truly tell you who is actually number one, because we look at all these teams and we talked about Burrow and the defense. We talked about the offensive line with Joe Burrow as well. I would talk about the offensive line with Drake May, where he was that Super Bowl. Did he play well? No, but I don't put it on him. I really don't. I do not put that Super Bowl loss on Drake May because of how under duress he was from the moment the ball was snapped. It felt like the Seahawks had a guy in the backfield before the play was even actually officially snapped. Like, it was unbelievable. And so if the Patriots can improve that offensive line, Drake May should be better. He should be better. I got to disagree. Like, the Athletic, their rankings, if it's the same person we're talking about here, they had Dak Prescott and Justin Herbert ahead of Drake May. That I can't get on board with. I can't do that. And I don't think that, again, that Drake May had a great AFC Championship game or a great Super Bowl, but I do think that he's a player that has the brain and the arm and the legs to take a big step forward next year. Maybe to your point, Jake, not statistically, but winning plays, winning games. You know, you should know what teams are going to throw at you now, right? That third-year jump, it should be there. You hope it's there. I think the Patriots, if this makes sense, could be a better team with a worse record this year. I think they could be a better team, but only win 11 games instead of 14.
It's a harder schedule this year than what it was last year. And I was looking this up for the site too, which you can read at 95 The Sports with all our training camp coverage. One of the things that I looked at is, the Patriots have the second easiest schedules of previous division winners. The Steelers have the easiest one of teams that won their division coming back for this year. They have the easiest schedule. Patriots were second in that. So at some point we can say, and I do agree with your point, that they could be a better team this year, but their record is worse than what it was last year, because just winning the amount of games they won, 14 wins last year, is hard to repeat in the NFL. So I think that's true. I would also say that don't also overestimate how hard of a season this is for the Patriots, because it could very well end up being another easy schedule, which they should take advantage of. And I didn't get on them last year too. I mean, people can call up and talk about this, but I didn't get on them for the easy schedule. They made the most of an easy schedule. They won the games they were supposed to win, and they didn't lose the games they were supposed to win past the month of September. So I don't get on them for that. I know some people here have said, oh, it's just an easy schedule, that's why they did it. Okay, well, they can't control that. We can talk about that. Where do they rank in comparison to the other teams in the NFL, the ones that are legit Super Bowl contenders, and maybe that easy schedule hurts them. But when you win 14 games and you're cruising through your schedule, that's not an indictment on you. That's just how the schedule is. And it shows how incompetent the Patriots were in 2024 about how bad that the organization was with Jerron Mayo as the head coach, that they were able to completely turn the ship around in 1 year and now are legit contenders and have stars on this team and able to just really change the perspective of their quarterback, the team at the national level.
Yeah, and going back to the schedule, everyone talks about how it's a lot more difficult, and they're not wrong. Opening night in Seattle, I mean, Seattle's always a really tough place to play, let alone, a night where they're raising a banner against a team that they beat in the Super Bowl, and that's going to be a really tough game for the Patriots, I would agree. I do look at their schedule, though, and I do agree that it's harder. I definitely agree with that. However, I do think they caught some breaks along the way. I think getting Green Bay here and not in Green Bay in December, I like that. Because that's a tough place. That's a tough place to win. I would say getting the Chicago Bears midway through the year is also better than getting them late in the year. I thought Caleb Williams was a really surprisingly effective quarterback, I thought, late in the year in Chicago. And he's a guy that I wonder if he gets better as the year goes on. So getting them kind of midway through, I don't hate that either. Jacksonville in the heat early in the year, that's going to be hard. But Drake May, he's a Carolina guy. He should be able to. He should know how to do that. And so I do think there are some areas here where I actually kind of like their schedule. Now, the obvious tough one is Kansas City in KC on a Monday night in December. But I also, again, I do like Denver. That Denver game is here, not in Denver, I believe. So that's another one too. Mile High is a house of horrors for this team, as we all know. And so I agree. Like, roster-wise, it is difficult, but or opponent-wise, it is difficult. But they do also catch some breaks in here that should allow them to be. You look at where they are after Week 6. If they're heading to Chicago for Week 7, and their first 6 games are Seattle, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, Buffalo, Vegas, and the Jets, they should be at least 4-2, in my opinion. Like, what losses are you giving them here in those first 6 games? I think Seattle and Buffalo.
Yeah.
Everything else they should win, though.
Yeah, especially, home against Pittsburgh, you should beat Pittsburgh. Jacksonville on the road, Vegas and New York at home, those should be wins too. So I'm with you at 4-2. 4-2 should be the floor. Then anything more than that, you can start to say that they play better than what they maybe were thought to be at the start of the year. But that Seattle game too, I think a lot of people are automatically chalking down as a loss. The Super Bowl hangover is real.
Oh, for
I don't
sure.
care what anyone says. I know that's a hard place to play. It's going to be ring night for the team. Mike Vrabel is the ultimate football guy, and I can totally see him using that as motivation. I'm surprised we haven't seen it yet in training camp. Maybe it's too early, but don't be surprised where you start seeing reports about, Vrabel did this about the rings. Talking about this game could have been in our building, and we could be getting the rings, and we're not getting it because we lost the game, right? Like, all these things and motivational pieces. Don't be surprised when Vrabel pulls it out, and the Patriots are locked and dialed in, and the Seahawks are the team that has a Super Bowl hangover, which is happened in every team not named the Chiefs in the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, it really is. Those ring nights are tough because you're ready to play football, and then you got to spend 45 minutes waiting to play football. Whereas the other team is saying, "Well, we're ready to go."
I guess they got their rings before, so I don't know if we can call it ring night. I guess because they got it camp, but like there's going to be some ceremony. They're going to do the banner or something stupid. There's going to be some Super Bowl ceremony. So I think that's going to be the ultimate motivational piece for Vrabel and the Patriots.
Yeah, and I go back to that, what was that 2017? I think it was 2017 or 2018. The KC New England game, Week 1 at Gillette. It was a sideshow, and the Chiefs won the game because it felt like the Patriots' focus was elsewhere in that game. Whether it was the Goodell towel, the clown towel, the team just kind of being disjointed. It was an ugly game, I remember, for the Patriots, and it began with so much fanfare that I think by the time that the game started, the Chiefs were ready and the Pats weren't. right? And so, like, there always is that possibility, to your point. Again, 617-779-0985. Got more questions about the Patriots, more questions about A.J. Brown and how things are going to look for this team. Reading and talking to Alex Barth and Matt Dolph. Seems like the wide receiver room's got some questions right now and a lot of bodies, and we're going to see what happens there. But again, 617-779-0985. It is Ty Anderson and Jake Seymour taking up until 5 p.m. here on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
A.J. Brown. Already going at it with teammates. No, not that bad. It's A.J. Brown, Chris Gonzalez having some trash talk at the Patriots training camp. This is Jake Seymour. I am Ty Anderson, taking it until 5 p.m. here on Sunday here at 98.5 The Sports Hub. When the Patriots went out and acquired A.J. Brown, it was the least surprising trade. Probably I can't remember the last time a trade was more obvious than this one. Maybe Kyrie to Boston back in 2018 or 17. Sorry, was more. We knew this was coming. You'd heard about it for weeks and weeks and weeks.
Sorry, we heard about the Kyrie trade before it happened. Because I remember being super surprised about that trade. So. And this trade kind of surprised me too for that same reason of just how everything came together. It felt like, because again, I was saying shortstop. That's all I was hearing before the deadline. And the fact that they went out and got a catcher to bolster the team and to be the deadline acquisition, I thought was surprising because it felt like they were okay there. And to the point too with catching and the way that they've built this is I just think. Sorry, I lost the train of thought.
No, you're good. You're good. No, I was saying the A.J. Brown trade was just not surprising because we knew that it was going to happen. It was going to have to happen on June 1st. Right? That was sort of what they kept saying.
I was reading the Adley.
Oh, dude, don't.
Completely got it.
Listen, I got to tell you, man.
When I was talking between the break about Adley Rush's father buying a plane ticket. So I was trying to find
so he's coming back, basically.
I was reading this, and then I got messed up. So
listen,
my apologies.
No.
You're right.
I host.
Very obvious.
I host a hockey show. I host a hockey show every Saturday morning. And I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a night owl. I'm up till 3, 4 in the morning regularly. I don't want to be, but my brain is up. And I have to write, and I get my best ideas at 2 in the morning every time. And I'm like, why can't you happen at 2 p.m.? Nevertheless, I'll get here in 3 hours of sleep, and then Garvin's a producer for the hockey show, and he'll ask me something, and I'll be like, yeah. And I'm like, wait, what? What did I just say yeah to? Did I just say yeah to hey, kill me with a hammer? What did I just agree to? Anyway, no. So please do not worry at all. But that's good though. Rutschman might be playing this next series based on what's happening there.
What Pete Abram had that. I was trying to find on Blue Sky because I was trying to log in and.
Oh, is he a Blue Sky exclusive guy now? Come on, man. Yeah. I'm on everything, but I copy paste everything so everyone is happy. Nevertheless, though, the A.J. Brown trade. They bring him in. Pats need a wide receiver. They get it with A.J. Brown. It does feel like they all of a sudden have a very crowded wide receiver locker room between Brown, between Dobbs. They obviously still have Booty. They still have Douglas. Who else am I missing? Kyle Williams, Efton Chisholm. They Mac Hollins. They have a lot of wide receivers all of a sudden. You can't play them all, but it does feel like Brown is definitely taking on that role of being the alpha of that group. That number one, he's replacing what they lost with Steph Diggs, what they walked away from with Steph Diggs. My question is, do you believe in A.J. Brown being the alpha that's not disruptive like he may have been in Philly because he's going to get more volume here in New England than he would in Philly playing with all the weapons they have between Barkley, between the tight end, name escaped me right now, I apologize, and their other weapons. It does feel like he can be that alpha and still be happy at the same time.
Yeah, I think that's definitely possible. And the point that you bring up is that there's so many receivers, only one football to go around. So who's going to get, how many receptions and who's Drake making a target? And I think the person who's everyone told me is the outlier in this is Kayshon Boutte. And where does he fall into it? Do they decide to move off him or trade him? And the thing I kept going back to is that A.J. Brown, I think, is going to work well, to your point about him just kind of slotting in and being the alpha receiver and this team kind of just following his lead. Well, what happens if something happens to him and he gets hurt? Now you're losing a very important piece of your offense. Why not just keep Boutte as kind of the backup, or at least a guy who can get reps? He's comfortable with Drake May. I did think it was interesting. Drake May was on Sirius XM radio, and they were talking about the receiving, and he named every receiver from A.J. Brown to Efton Chisholm. You know who was last after Efton Chisholm? Kayshon Boutte.
Well, that sucks.
And he says he's a comfortable receiver. Well, if he's a comfortable receiver, and you guys obviously had chemistry together last year, why is he after Efton Chisholm, who didn't really play last year?
Right. Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie to you, like the Kayshon Boutte sort of erasure, like just get rid of him. I can't subscribe to it. I actually think that when you've given him a chance, he's been an effective receiver. I'm more so out on Pop Douglas, who I've been told for 5 years now is going to be this next breakthrough candidate, and it's just never really happened.
Don't tell that to Alex Barth. He loves Pop.
Dude, so Barth loves Pop, and now Matt Dolph also loves Pop, and they're both telling me how good he's going to be or how good he's been in training camp. And I'm like, I hear this every year, guys. I don't want to hear it anymore. I've done it so many times now that I can't be like, oh, yeah, cool. Listen, Anders Bjork was a fantastic preseason and training camp player for the Boston Bruins. Every camp, I was like, dude, he looks great. He's going to make it. He's going to be everything you want and more. And the games would happen, and you're like, oh, no, he actually kind of sucks. And I don't know if I don't want to say that Pop Douglas sucks, but I'm sick of the hype train. I'm sick of being told how good he's going to be when the reality might be this is who he is. He shows occasional flashes, but he's not going to be a consistent threat. And so we're talking about this team, and we're talking about, okay, who's out? Is it Kayshon Boutte? Is it Kyle Williams, who was a recent draft pick, so you don't want to get rid of those guys so quickly? Or is it Pop Douglas? And if I'm picking between those three, again, accepting that Alex and Matt see Pop Douglas more than I do, I'm okay moving on from Kyle Williams because I do think that he'd probably give you maybe a better return or as equal a return as Kayshon Boutte. And I come back to it, and I know this may not be right. This may be unfair because that was college. This is the NFL. Kayshon Boutte was at one point a highly touted receiver prospect who ran into some off-field trouble, and his stock plummeted. I think he's since taken ownership of that, but there's some pedigree there that I don't want to run away from, Jake. I almost want to foster that and give that a longer runway. If you can give the Pop Douglas runway to Kayshon Boutte, I think you may get stronger results than you've gotten from Pop Douglas.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair to bring up. And, he's good value right now, Kayshon Boutte, because he had, like you said, the off the field and the gambling things that kind of slid him down to the 6th round when the Patriots selected him. Now, the only reason why you'd want to move off him right now is if you can't agree to a contract and you think he's going to be worth a lot of money and you're going to lose him. Now, if you're going to lose the player and get nothing for him, then, yeah, okay, your hand's dealt for you and you are forced to make a deal, and that's not your fault. But if you can keep him around as even a security option, even if that means not getting anything back for him, I think that's still a little bit beneficial because it's the ultimate almost like get out for jail card. If something happens to a receiver, especially A.J. Brown, we have this guy who is comfortable with Drake May, our star young quarterback. They were great together last year, and it can help you get out of games. So, to me, that's why you keep him around, because even if you lose him for nothing, I mean, what were you going to get for him anyways?
True.
Just try and keep him on, and if you can extend him, great. If not, then let him walk in free agency, let him go get paid somewhere else, and then next year you don't have him. But why have to? It's kind of similar to like the Celtics situation with Jaylen Brown. Like, why'd you have to move off him now? Mm-hmm. Don't make that same mistake. Not that Boutte's the same caliber of player as Jaylen Brown, but don't make the same mistake of rushing a deal because you feel like it needs to get done when you can wait and see what happens.
Yeah, I just find it all very confusing how you got to get Boutte out of here. You got to get Boutte out of here. And again, I'm just going to go back to last season. Last season, Kayshon Boutte played 14 games, had 33 catches, 551 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Demario Douglas had 17 games, 31 catches, 447 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And now I know their roles are different. Pop Douglas can play the slot, Boutte doesn't as much. I understand that part of it all. But if my slot receiver is getting 31 catches in 17 games, you can't get better there. You like that's a guy you got to keep over Kayshon Boutte, who was more productive in catches, in yards, and touchdowns in fewer games. 3 fewer games. Like, that's sizable in my opinion. And so I would much rather keep Boutte over Pop Douglas if I'm making that call right now. So I don't understand why it's a foregone conclusion. I understand, like, different roles. I understand that part of it. But it does feel like Kayshon Boutte has given you enough where he should be more than a mere afterthought when it comes to where this team fits in. And I do wonder if A.J. Brown's role as the top dog, I do wonder if he has an impact on this in terms of how does he look in camp? How does he look in the preseason? And does his role and does how he dictates coverage open things up for either Douglas or Booty? And does that change the dynamic of who's out, who's in? Because I do feel like we're talking about this right now, but like I do feel like there's an element here of like there's an unknown in terms of I don't know if X is that much better than Y. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And and that's part of this that I think Brown's impact as the Z to this X and Y may have a real impact on who we're saying right now should be the guy out may not be the case in 2 weeks, 3 weeks with how things are right now.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other part of this too is like when I look at Pop Douglas and you said he can play the slot, it feels like Romeo Dobbs should be taking that role over.
100%.
That should be his role. So now you have two receivers who are both losing their primary responsibilities from the year before. And I think you could also argue that Matt Collins could play in the slot as well. We saw that last year. So now if we look at the depth chart, you have AJ Brown and Kayshon Boutte on one side, and then in the slot, you're going to have Romeo Dobbs, Matt Collins can play there, and Pop Douglas. Wouldn't it make more sense to move off of Douglas and then keep Boutte because of where the depth chart is and where they all line up and stack up? That, to me, is the move. Has nothing to do with who's better or who's not. It's look at the team overall, and if you want to get rid of guys and you can't keep them all, if you feel that way, then what guys can play certain responsibilities? Well, right now, I feel like you have more slot receivers than you have guys of the Brown and Kayshon Boutte category of outside guys who can make plays down the field. So why not just keep Boutte, see what happens with Pop Douglas, and if you feel like you need to move off him. But again, like this is the other thing too, it kind of goes back to our conversation with prospects and the Red Sox. Like we're talking about two receivers who probably wouldn't have been big names on teams had they were not drafted by the Patriots during a period of time in the organization of such dysfunction.
Right.
And I know 100%. They both had good years last year, so I don't want to completely discredit them. But I think if you look at the guys around them, namely Romeo Dobbs and AJ Brown, both of those guys are bigger upgrades from Pop Douglas and Kayshon Boutte.
100%. And I also think your quarterback's desired style of throwing the ball should also play an impact here, where I do think Drake May is more deep threat than he is, hey, I'm going to take the 5-yard check down right now. Like he wants to go deep. And so that's where guys like Boutte and AJ Brown, I think, are going to have a greater impact than a Pop Douglas. But yeah, to your point, we're quibbling over two guys that were 2023 6-round picks, right? Who otherwise, most teams are like, you guys are having a debate over these two. Like other franchises are like, why are you doing this right now? But it does speak to sort of the multi-year. I don't know what you want to call it of that position. It just the absolute bottoming out of that position for the Patriots as a whole. 617-779-0985. Another quick break here when we come back. More of whatever you want to talk about here. It is Jake Seymour. I am Ty Anderson. Taking up until 5 p.m. here on 98.5 Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Live here from the Town Fair Tire Studios. It's whatever. It's Sunday. Ty Anderson, Jake Seymour, take up till 5 p.m. today. Talking Patriots, talking Red Sox, whatever you want to talk about. One thing that we haven't got to yet, Jake, that I want to get to here is the Jaylen Brown press conference that happened in Philadelphia this past week. Kind of confirmed what a lot of us felt when that trade happened, where he was asked, it was Bobby Manning went down. From CLNS Media, he went down to Philly for the press conference, and he actually asked about Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and their relationship, and Jaylen Brown says, not really, when asked if they've spoken since the trade, which I think is surprising and also not. You kind of felt like there was a weird falling out there between the parties, but what did you make of that press conference? And there was a lot to get to in it, obviously, but what were your initial thoughts from that press conference?
I just think overall, you kind of let off with it, that it confirmed a lot of what we thought about how the relationship was, and maybe was there something else that motivated this move? Because Brad Stevens said in his press conference that he did with Bill Chisholm in the beginning of July that this was a financial move and that he decided to do this, and he blamed the new salary cap, the second apron restrictions, those punishments for why this had to happen. But I guess what I kind of go back to is, was there something else that led you to believe that? Because if that was the case, why not move off Brown last year and completely bottom out? Because Tatum had the Achilles injury, and you knew he wasn't going to come back until the end of the season at the earliest. So if that was the case, you could have done what the Pacers did, completely bottomed out, reset. And I think Jaylen Brown's market probably would have been better than what it was this year, because within the last calendar year, a lot of what he did, I think, in hindsight, probably rubbed a lot of people the wrong way in the NBA circles. You know, you have him getting in the streams and those comments and him calling this the favorite season he's had in his 10-year career. And it was the one that Jason Tatum was out for almost all of it, and he was the alpha and the number one guy. So, and not to mention, too, that I do think that there is a lot of people in the NBA that don't like Brown or have something against him for whatever reason. Like, it's unwarranted. I think he's a good person from all accounts, and he does a lot for the community, and I think a lot of that's undeserved, and he feels disrespected, and he tries to prove that. So it's an easy player for fans to root for. So going off all that, though, was there something else that, or maybe a combination of things that Brad Stevens said, okay, because of this, and the money, we have to move off Jaylen Brown? I find it hard to believe that money and the second apron, especially when the player you got in, Paul George, who, by the way, hasn't been introduced yet as a member of the Boston Celtics to the media in their press conference yet. I just find it weird that you brought in a player like Paul George, whose contract is basically the same as Jaylen Brown. So was it really money? I know it. I explained this before. George's contract's up a year earlier than Brown, and on top of that, Paul George isn't going to get another big contract. There's no extension.
Right.
So, like, I understand that part of it, but you just kind of sit here and you say, this doesn't make sense. There's still a lot of questions that remain unanswered, and we're now, month and a half, 2 months away from this whole thing shaking out, and it still feels really weird and really confusing why this had to happen.
Yeah, I firmly believe that you can sit me down and explain to me the basketball reasons for why this trade was done, and I'd probably walk away going, okay, yeah, I see it. It's the timing, as you mentioned. It's the what you're getting back, as you mentioned. And it's sort of the, okay, what's next part of it that I think is what has gotten fans' backs up about, okay, well, it's not a good enough trade for a player of that caliber, right? Why is it happening now? And to your point, not in September when you probably could have had a better offer, or that same offer would have been there, right?
Yeah.
Or even to your point last year where you could have said, hey, we're moving off from Porzingis, from Holiday, from Horford. Let's throw another one in there and just say, like, hey, we gotta start over. And I want to talk about the NBA CBA in a minute, but I want to focus on this because CBA talk on a Sunday is like, kill me now. But anyway, no, but I think that's where fans are a little bit frustrated and confused by what's going on. I'm dying to know their next move. I know that James Stewart, fellow Mass producer, said that Curry was in town hanging out with Jason Tatum last week. I mean, if you can spin this into getting Steph Curry to Boston, then I'm much more on board with that, even though Curry is older and we know it's a shorter window with a player like that. But again, I think you got Paul George and 2 first-round picks, so who cares, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that, like, the Brown-Tatum thing, clearly there was something there beyond the surface, and I do wonder if it sort of culminated with Tatum not playing in Game 7. I do wonder if that was sort of a moment where the gloves were off, so to speak, with Jaylen Brown and what he talked about after the season, saying this was one of my most favorite years as a pro, and it was almost like, you know what, this guy bagged out of Game 7, so I'm gonna now be who I want to be.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, too, is maybe the kindling was there. That maybe there were other things that happened that slowly but surely kind of stacked up, and then there was one giant spark that lit the kindling on fire, and you had a massive fire that nobody could put out. Mm-hmm. And I think, again, Jaylen Brown, one of the star players of a team in the NBA, did not know that his co-star was not playing in Game 7 until 45 minutes before, basically the same time the media found out. Because I remember I was at the Garden for Game 7, and we were sitting, waiting for Joe Mazzulla's presser to happen, which is about an hour 15, I believe it is, whatever it is. It's right around an hour before tip-off, okay? And the news broke right before Mazzulla walked in the room. So he basically found out the same time the info went public. And he's in the room, he's in the locker room, he's getting paid millions of dollars by this franchise. He doesn't have an inside scoop on that. Not even a scoop. He's not told on an internal memo or an internal problem that's happening with his team in front of a pivotal moment. I mean, that series should have never got to 7 games. It should have been over in 5 games. It really should have been a sweep. They should have got that. The Sixers should have never even played Embiid. It should have never gotten to that point because the Celtics should have just dominated the whole series, and they should have quit. The Sixers should have quit. That's what should have happened. Now, obviously, that didn't happen. And I just think when you go back and you look at the history of this, that there's a potential that the 76ers stole your lunch money, went in and beat you to death on your home floor in Game 7. They then went and got your star player, which then enabled them to get LeBron James. Mm-hmm. So you've caused this super team to be built. And by the way, and this is not just a Celtics thing, this is a lot of the NBA execs. You want to tell me that this new CBA prevents this? Tell me how Tyrese Maxey, VJ Edgecombe, Jaylen Brown, Joel Embiid, and LeBron James are now on the same team.
Right.
A super team.
Right.
And I know LeBron's not LeBron or what he was 5-10 years ago. He's still LeBron James. He's a good player. And Joel Embiid's still going to be there. Jaylen Brown's in his prime. VJ Edgecombe's a great, young, talented piece. And Tyrese Maxey's a good player. Mm-hmm. So that's a talented super team. So don't tell me it can't happen in the new CBA because we're watching it happen right now.
I hate the CBA. I'm going to be honest with you. We've talked about this before off the air, just in passing. I hate that this NBA CBA basically punishes you for wanting to win and for having good players. I just hate that in a sports era where you get these teams that are just straight up not trying. They're just not trying half the time. You know, you look at the NBA and you look at teams like the Utah Jazz and the Sacramento Kings and the New Orleans Pelicans and the Wizards and the Brooklyn Nets and the Chicago Bulls. Teams that have just been bad for way too long. And they have there's no incentive to get better because they still make their TV contract money. They still make money from the revenue sharing as a whole. And, you know, MLB has that same problem too. We got teams that are just happy to pocket the money they make from all the TV deals versus actually trying to win games. How are you going to punish teams that load up on talent and try to win, right? And it can still happen, as you noted, with the Philadelphia 76ers and what they've built right now. But, like, you know, a year ago or 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, whatever it was, when the Celtics went out and got Drew Holiday, everyone, all right, well, the clock starts now. And you're like, what do you mean the clock starts now? Well, you got 3 years basically to try to win a bunch of championships, maybe. And, you know, you hope you do. And if you don't, you have to trade off a bunch of guys for nothing. And then the Magic went out and got was Desmond Bane. And they signed him to that big contract. It's like, all right, the clock started for the Magic. You're like, wait, what do you mean? The clock started. They're not even good yet. And it's like, nope, clock started now because they got these contracts in the books. The Thunder, we're saying the same thing. We're going to be saying the same thing about the Spurs, too, here soon, too. It's just like, it's so annoying. Like, I never want to punish a team for trying to win. In a world where everyone's trying to lose to get futures and draft picks and prospects, like we've talked about, I don't want to punish teams for trying to win games. And it does feel like the NBA CBA really punishes teams for trying to win games and having good players.
Yeah, it feels like where sports is going as a whole, it's not winning the championships and winning the games, but rather like, hey, look at what I did with this little money I resourced. Look at how much money I got back, like really handling these sports teams as a business. And that's what separates sports teams from the rest of the business, is that no, we win, we have championships, and this is why I'm successful. That's what I thought owners always relied on. And then the NBA, they implemented this 3-2-1 lottery system, which is very confusing and not enough time to go in details about like what it is, but they just implemented this in May, where basically they're going to take the 3 worst records of the 3 worst teams in the NBA, and that'll be the combination for the first pick. And then if you're in that group for too many years in a row, I think it's after 1 or 2 seasons, you're relegated, so you can't get a pick that's lower than 12. Like this whole thing, like tanking wasn't the issue in the NBA. I mean, it was an issue. I should rephrase that. It was an issue. It wasn't a big enough issue where we had to have this whole new relegation system and make this whole system confusing. The problem in the NBA that we're really seeing is this new CBA stripping teams away and getting talent taken from them. I mean, the Thunder had to trade away pieces this year. The Celtics had to get rid of Jaylen Brown because of this. And maybe there was some other stuff there, but this was used as the excuse to move off him. And I think in an era, too, of where sports is costing so much more money and everything is just exorbitant in price tags, that it gives the owners the cop-out of saying, yeah, it's too expensive, we're going to get rid of this player. And private equity means I need to get rid of this and play cheap. And that makes for a bad product. Like, you're hindering and capping your ability to put on a good product. And that's a detriment to the fans. It really is.
And I do wonder if all this happens with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, if the Celtics didn't have to tear it down a year ago and they could have kept Drew Holiday for another year, they could have kept Porzingis and Horford for another year. I do just wonder if making it that cut and dry of this is the 1, this is the 2, and you're going to go back to being the 2, I do wonder if that sort of accelerated things for the breakup between these 2 players. And I really thought, and maybe it's me being naive, I really thought that they were going to be like Clay and Steph, and they were going to be able to basically shut everybody up and be like, no, we get along fine. And when one of us does leave, it's because we're older and we want one more payday, not because we don't like each other, right? And it does feel like they were so close to being able to pull that off, and ultimately it took an Achilles injury. And I wrote about this that night when that Achilles injury happened. I said, this could be the end of it. Like, and that's what sucks, because that, like, all of a sudden everything changed in one moment, right? That with that Achilles injury, but
So just going off that though, because I'm glad you brought this, 'cause I was about to go there. Is that night it felt like everything changed, and that the Boston Celtics, as we knew it, was about to change, and it was going to be completely different. But they completely flipped the script this year, and that all of a sudden, I remember talking about Skaz on this on the Green Teamers podcast, and we had said, could you imagine that after Tatum ruptures Achilles, it felt like it was rock bottom. The Celtics team were going to be completely changed. They got rid of Porzingis, Holiday, Horford, Cornette walks, like all these subtractions happen in the Celtics. Now a year later, Tatum comes back to a team that is second in the conference, and we were sitting there saying, wow, this team could be an NBA Finals team. And it all flipped because Tatum got hurt in Game 6, didn't play in Game 7, and the Celtics couldn't take care of business in Games 5 and 6, and really, earlier in that series as well. I remember after that first game, Skaz and I were saying, this team, there's no way the Sixers beat the Celtics. And if you had told us, oh yeah, they're going to come back from a 3-1 deficit, we would have laughed at your face and said,
oh yeah,
you're crazy. So it's just the ebbs and flows of the Celtics needs to be studied, because it's fascinating to me how it was win the championship, they're going to repeat, to rock bottom with the Achilles injury, they're back up here, and now they're in this middle ground, which I would argue is the worst place to be in the NBA, because it's like purgatory. You can't really go up, you can't go down, and you're just stuck.
Yeah, and you have to hope that sort of what you saw last year, you're going to get back to Tatum being the uncontested number one on your team, right? Like, he's going to be that guy. Not always the best role for him, right? And I think Tatum is a better basketball player than Jaylen Brown in terms of his impact defensively, offensively. His ceiling is definitely higher than Jaylen Brown. But if you force him as the one, do you get the best out of your team? That's what I wonder. And the other player that I'm looking at this year with extra binoculars is Derek White. Derek White, the shots weren't going down at the same rate they were a year ago. You wonder if that's a one-year blip or if Derek White is maybe starting to fade a little bit given his age and where he's going. That was the biggest thing from Drew Holiday year 1 to Drew Holiday year 2 was that the corner threes were not dropping at the same rate the second year. And that was a huge issue for the team ultimately. And a big reason why they went out earlier than they probably should have was that efficiency kind of went out the window and the team struggled more as a whole. So we're going to see what happens here, but plenty of time to go. And I love what Cerrone Battle has said about Jaylen Brown and about the trade as a whole. He's like, we're going to see once the balls get thrown in the air. That's kind of like, we've talked about the situation so much that I'm dying to see what the 76ers look like, and I'm dying to see what the Boston Celtics look like, because Jaylen Brown may have just walked his way into being the number 3 on a team instead of being the number 2. So I'm dying to know how that's going to happen. I think LeBron will keep everybody in check because he's a veteran guy and he knows. But that's going to be a really fascinating situation, I think, to watch in Philadelphia. But again, 617-779-0985. We're going to talk more Celtics, more Patriots, more Red Sox, more whatever you want. On the other side here is Jake Seymour and Ty Anderson taking it up till 5 p.m.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Live from the Town Fair Tire Studios, it is the final hour of Sports Hub programming here for this lovely Sunday. I am Ty Anderson, joined in studio by Jake Seymour. We're taking up until 5 p.m. Jake, you mentioned something last segment that still intrigues me, is that the Celtics have not introduced Paul George yet. Trades happen now. I mean, the 76ers introduced Jaylen Brown, and that was sort of a long wait for that press conference too. And so here we are. It's now August. I do wonder if we're going to get one at all now with Paul George. I do think that the Kyrie one was late, but that was a late trade. That was an August trade, I believe, is when that finally came together. Trade, right. Yeah, and so that was late but natural for the timing of the trade. This trade happened a month ago now, and we're still waiting for Paul George. I know he's been in town. They've posted photos of him holding his jersey.
July 7th. I just looked that up. July 7th. It's been a month since that happened.
So we still haven't heard from him. Maybe, do the Celtics look at Paul George and say, nah, at this point in his career, he's not worthy of a press conference? I find that hard to believe as well.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it could also be with the negative, I guess, publicity. And to their credit, too, I will say, with all the negative publicity that surrounded the Jaylen Brown trade and getting rid of a player like that, to Brad Stevens and Bill Chisholm's credit, they did the presser to address all that right as it happened, which I appreciated. Like, it's always good when people in those positions speak and share their thoughts about why this happened and are being held accountable. Like, so I give them props for doing that and owning the decision and, to move off Brown. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's because they don't think he's a player of that caliber that deserves an introductory press conference. But I'd argue too that you're the Boston Celtics. You're one of the, storied franchises in the NBA. If you bring in a player who's making 35% of the salary cap, you do the press conference and you let the media talk to them and figure out, what's going to happen the rest of the year and start building those stories and narratives. So I think it's weird. I really do. I think it's are they looking at other trades? Is there something else that's going to come out? Because the Celtics and Brad Stevens, as we know, they'll deal to the last minute. Drew Holiday, I believe, didn't get traded to the Celtics till October. So
right.
This is a team and organization that has made late trades. You talk about Kyrie Irving and that not happening till late. So maybe that's what it comes down to, and they're waiting for the very last moment, and maybe that'll be media day when that kind of officially concludes. And that'll be in September, I believe, when that usually occurs. So yeah, I just think it's weird. I don't know if we've ever seen something like this get kicked down the road for a big trade, like a trade of this magnitude, just continuously kick it down. I know, like, there's a meme when they traded away, I believe it was Garnett and Pierce when that trade happened, with all I think it was Chris Humphries was introduced. With
Keith Bogans.
All those guys. Like, they had a press conference for those guys. So where's the Paul George press conference?
Right, and that's maybe it's learning from past mistakes where they don't want to get mocked for having a press conference for a guy that they don't really view as part of their plans. But to your point, he is right now. He's making big money.
He's a Celtic, right?
Right, exactly, and he's a Celtic until proven otherwise. And so it is interesting. I do wonder about this Steph Curry thing. I don't know how likely it is that the Golden State Warriors trade Steph Curry right now. I do find it telling, though, that they're writing about the Warriors out in San Fran like it's over. They're writing about like the era is over and they're going to have to plan for what's happening after Steph Curry leaves or retires. And what I found funny about you probably read this reporting about the Warriors and the Celtics talked about Jaylen Brown, and the Warriors didn't want to pay the price, which was believed to be 4 first-round picks and the expiring contract of Jimmy Butler, who is recovering from a torn ACL and probably won't play next year, or not until late in the year. And so the theory was that the price was going to be 4 first-round picks to send Brown there, but also to take on the Butler contract. The reporting was that the Warriors didn't want to do that trade because they didn't believe in Jaylen Brown being the guy after Steph Curry retired. And I was kind of like, well, what about while he's here and on your team and wants another title? Wouldn't Jaylen Brown help the Warriors with Steph Curry versus hurt them? Who cares about after Steph Curry retires? You don't worry about that when you have Steph Curry. You worry about getting the most out of Steph Curry, the player, while he's still in town. So I found that confusing. Really well. Right. And it'd be the best version, it'd be the best player they had since probably, when KD and Clay left, right? Like Jaylen Brown, undoubtedly, this guy was six in the MVP voting, all NBA second team. Like and that'd probably get you LeBron James too at the same time. If you had Jaylen and Steph Curry, I think LeBron goes to Golden State and not Philadelphia. That's might be a hot take, but that's how I look at that. That's been
what was reported, that Jaylen Brown was the reason why LeBron James went to the Sixers. There was the president was interviewed during the Phillies broadcast last week, and they were talking about Jaylen Brown being a 76er, and if that helped, and he's like, yeah, we called Rich Paul and said, hey, we got Jaylen Brown. Does this change anything? He's like, yeah, it does. Yeah. So if Jaylen Brown, and this goes back to the Celtics, if you don't trade Jaylen Brown to the 76ers, they don't get LeBron James. If they win a title, that's the ultimate screw up for a rival. You gave your rival one of your best players, and then they went out and got a player who's still not in his prime, but it's still an impact level player.
Right.
That's what you did. You gave them, you said, here, we don't want this. Take this player off our hands.
Yeah.
And then they went, oh, yeah, we'll take him. He's a great player. And we're going to go get this great player because he's here now. I mean, it's an ultimate screw-up. If they really win the title, I don't know how else you can see it, as that the Celtics gave away a great player to their rival, and they used that player to upgrade their team, even outside of just getting the player, and then they win the title? Like, I don't know how else you can look at that and say, yeah, it's not a screw-up.
Yeah, and the other part of that, too, is that the Celtics actually did try to get LeBron. They made calls on LeBron in July after making that trade, saying, hey, you want to come to Boston? And that obviously didn't go anywhere.
Well, Rich Paul was on that podcast. I think was including the mind the podcast that LeBron used to do with JJ Redick. He was on a podcast. I'm blanking on the name of it, but he wrote on a whiteboard all the different teams that like LeBron was at, and the Celtics was Tatum and Stevens.
Yeah. Great.
You think like Tatum, Brown, and Stevens would have been a bigger like lore for LeBron than just Tatum and the GM?
Yeah. Not even the coach, just the GM.
No. Tatum and Stevens.
Yeah, that's a weird one. We got a call from Jack in D.C. Jack wants to talk about the MLB strike. Jack, what's going on?
Hey guys, great show. Look, I want your opinion on something. I'm thinking right now they're pretty far from come to an agreement, so the lockout's going to happen. That being the case, who do you think has the upper hand on time? I know they've been able to vilify the player a little bit, saying, we're tired of paying, $500 million for one salary. Most of those owners, this isn't their only gig. They got other money coming in, but probably 50 to 60% of the players, this is their only gig unless you got commercials. Who do you think's can wait the other out longest?
Jack, thank you for the call. It's a great question. I do feel like the players are always who people side with in these labor disputes. It is millionaires versus billionaires. Although I will say, to Jack's point, you're seeing more MLB players inch closer to the billion status with these contracts that we're seeing right now. When I look at the potential labor stoppage in the MLB, Jake, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. Like, I just think that you definitely see why they want a cap. You just do. I also would argue that a floor is just as important as a cap. Because I think we talked about it earlier, you have teams that just straight up aren't trying to spend money and aren't trying to make money to put on a product that is worth watching. So I think naturally, Jake, fans will side with the players over the billionaire owners. That's just kind of how it is. You like players more than you like owners. I've never met a fan who's like, my favorite team is the Red Sox because I love John Henry. No one ever says something like that. Or like, I'm a huge fan of the Steinburners, so I love the Yankees. Like, it's always the other way around. So I think naturally people will like the players more than they'll like the owners. Especially
in a sense where like the owners are trying to be greedy and take away from what baseball is. The best thing about baseball, at least from like a business standpoint and contracts and as a fan watching teams build, is that it doesn't matter what the player costs, what kind of contract he wants, who is the player. If the owner wants the player on his team, he pays him. And he outbids everyone else to make sure that he's on his roster because there's no salary cap. So like if you're going to create this salary cap or salary floor, however you want to describe the new era of Major League Baseball contracts, I'm going to tell you that it all comes back to the owners being greedy. And I think a lot of fans are going to go back to the fact that they're going to side with the players because it's in any strike. I mean, I feel like most people, when there's a strike, you kind of side with the workers because it's the working man. Most people, as a greater population, it's mostly workers, not owners of companies, right? So all of that is just a way to say that everyone's going to side with the players, but the players aren't going to be able to outlast these billionaire owners. I mean, even there are some players who make a ton of money, and I mean, a lot of these players do make a lot of money, but that's like the top of the 1%. A lot of these players are minor league players who need to play to get paid, and they don't have these crazy contracts. Not everyone's like Christian Campbell playing AAA baseball on a $100 million contract, right? So there's got to be a balance there, and they have to work to get money. I mean, what are they going to do? Get out of baseball for a year to keep themselves afloat and to put food on the table for their families? Like, they can't always do that. So that's why the players are probably going to be the ones who cave first, because not all of them can survive without playing.
Yeah, and I do think that there does hit a point. I've covered the NHL in my career, and I've now been a part of one lockout and one near lockout. And when that happens, you have basically to Jack's point, there are teams and owners that don't necessarily need the money to remain profitable. But there are owners who are saying, hey, I'm losing $500 million a month while this is going on. And I'd like to stop that now if I can. $500 million may be too strong, but you know what I mean? They're losing sizable money. And that eventually does pressure people to cave and to concede on things they want. I think it's very clear that they want a salary cap. Now, they may put a hard line and draw a hard line in the sand and say, like, this is what we're doing, right? In 1994, I believe it was really above the salary cap, which obviously didn't happen. I think someone's got to get in that room and say to the owners and to the players, like, hey guys, we have momentum that we haven't really had since the steroid era. Like, we can't piss this away right now. Like, we have to find a way to find common ground. It's just, I think baseball players are very hard-headed, like as a people. I found in my dealings with them, and owners, billionaires are always hardline people. And you just need someone to say, guys, we have the best momentum since everyone was on steroids, and no one's on steroids right now. So let's try to keep that going here versus pissing it away. Because in '94 when they did that, like it did take the McGuire-Sosa home run race of '98 to kind of get people back on board. And I just feel like that's something that the sides have to be mindful of, because they all want money, and there's no greater way to lose money than to have an actual lockout.
Yeah, I think there was. So I just Googled it because I always thought there was a lockout in 2020, and there technically wasn't. But there was. They delayed the season because of COVID, and then also like there was a dispute with the owners and players about like what to, do economically and how to make this happen. But that was kind of like, can we call it a mini lockout? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
that's fair, right? So I remember saying when that was going on, like, man, baseball's really screwing up because this is the perfect time to play baseball because there was no other sports going on. It was dead of the summer. We were all sports craved, and baseball could have came out and said, we're going to do this, and we're going to fix what's going on with our players, and we're going to make sure everything works out fine, and they didn't. Mm-hmm. So every time something, I feel like going in baseball's direction, Major League Baseball, they just step in and go, oh, no, we're going to screw this up. Like, we're going to mess this up in some capacity.
Yeah, and the other part of it, Jake, is that you got teams, big market teams that are back to being relevant. The Chicago Cubs are a fantastic team. They're the second best team in baseball right now since the Red Sox started their run. You got Boston and Chicago, and the White Sox are good again now too. You got the Yankees obviously as a major player, the Dodgers who we all know, and you've had markets wake up that were previously kind of sleepy. And so I think that's an important thing for baseball too, is that if you look at where they are right now, as things are currently positioned in October, they're on pace to get some monster ratings, right? And so don't piss it away because you're being ego driven. I think both sides should concede some things. I think that a huge problem in baseball and sports as a whole right now is the deferred money. Not every organization is built to just give away money like that and, basically pay guys till 2040s. So you got to kind of nip that one. I know the NHL did because the Anaheim Ducks were starting to do that. And the NHL said, nope. We got to stop this. This is not what we're going to be doing here. And so that's something that they tackled in their newest CBA. And I imagine that's what the MLB is going to say. Like, no, you can't be Dodgers. Sorry, you can't be paying guys millions into the 2040s. That's insane. 617-779-0985. Red Sox game just went final. A late game implosion, basically, from Aroldis Chapman paves the way for a loss for the Boston Red Sox. We'll talk more about that on the other side. We got a few callers on the lines. We're going to get to you right after a quick break here. It is Ty Anderson and Jake Seymour taking up until 5 p.m. here on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Live from the Town Fair Tire Studios, it is Jake Seymour. I am Ty Anderson. We're taking you until 5 p.m. here on 98.5, talking Red Sox. They actually lost a series for the first time since late June. The last series they lost, by the way, was to the Nationals. That's crazy.
It's officially over, Ty. Season's done.
Season's done. Everything we talked about in the first hour is now null and void. Everything's bad. You know what? I still believe. Cowboy up, baby. No, I do think that this team is... I think they'll be okay. But now we got to see how they respond. I am curious. You mentioned it earlier. Adley Rutschman's father is going to Toronto, which would seemingly indicate that he's going to be playing.
Red Sox debut there.
I'm in. I want to see that. I think the sooner we get this guy in the lineup and the sooner that we see what he's working with the pitchers. The thing about Rutschman that I think we kind of have maybe looked past is just how good he is at calling a game. And defensively, what he can give you, I think he's going to give you more than than Wong, and definitely more than Narvaez gave you this year. And so that's going to be really interesting as well. It's sort of a crash course. And Maz has talked about this, and people have talked about this, like bringing in a catcher midway through a year when your pitching staff is pitching this well can be a gamble. But I think with a guy like Rutschman, like he's smart enough where he should be able to maximize their pitching, and there's not going to be a massive dip there. So I'm curious how that works. We actually do. Dean in Shrewsbury. Dean, what's going on today?
Hey, I really don't get why we're not starting Bayo again. His ERA since the first month of the season has been 3.05, so he's pitching extremely effectively. I know it's partly because he's not facing the first few batters in the order each first inning, but his ERA suggests that he's at least pitching effectively against who he's seeing, and it's been months of this, so I don't know why we're not starting him again.
Dean, thank you for the call. It's a good question. I do wonder, Jake, do you think he has the yips when it comes like the first inning, and it's just avoiding the yips entirely?
I think it's a mental thing with him. It's a mental hurdle for whatever reason. He can't focus or get locked in enough for that first inning and just completely implodes on himself, and it ends up being a complete nightmare anytime he starts a game. So I'm at the point now with him. He's pitching well. It looks good. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just let him be. Let him come in as a reliever, do the weird start, and then put him in the second inning. Like that's not someone you want to, tail onto for too long. Like for your future, that's not a good sign. But for right now in the intermediate future, like okay, fine, just let him do his thing.
Yeah, and it comes back to what we talked about earlier with Garrett Crochet, right? Like we're kind of running out of daylight here to see Garrett Crochet go on a legit rehab assignment. Portland ends their year on September 13th. AAA Worcester ends their year on September 20th. And now I know that that's a month, right? So we're not totally out of daylight here, but you got to get the program going up again here. And if you can't do it in the minors, can you do it at the MLB level and make Crochet your opener for Brian Bayo? Can it be a two birds, one stone kind of thing where you're saying, hey, Garrett, we're going to get you up and running here. Give us 2 strong innings, and then we're going to go to Bayo. Can you make that work where your fifth turn of the rotation is almost a combo of Crochet and Bayo giving you a combined 6 or 7 innings? I'd wonder about that. But, Jake, to your point about Brian Bayo, did you ever watch that documentary, the Netflix one about the Boston Red Sox from 2 years ago?
I missed that one. I saw like the highlights. I didn't get a chance to like watch the whole thing in its totality.
So if you watch that, you kind of learn that Bayo is a little bit of a head case. Like there's a moment where he gets pulled from a game and the camera follows him to the clubhouse and he's slamming stuff, throwing stuff. And the thing that he says is, I can't even throw a quality start. Why do you care about the quality start? Why do you care about that number? Why do you care about that stat? It's an arbitrary stat that is just like, hey, you did 6 innings and your whip was under 1 and you only allowed 3 runs or fewer. Like, that was a weird thing to say in that moment. I can't throw a GD quality start. Like, that was kind of, I was like, he cares about that, huh? Like, and so I just wonder if there's like an element here of like, I'm starting, and it has to be a quality start. If I have a bad first inning, is it not a quality start? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I just wonder if there's such a mental block that he's so focused on the quality aspect of it. And I know that was 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, whatever. So he may not care like he did back then, but it's a little bit of a glimpse into his mind.
But it didn't get better for him, right? Like he struggled throughout last year and the year before that. Like he's never reached the point at where everyone thought he was going to be at some point. I think like it always felt like you were talking about him in a negative light, and well, maybe he could get there. Now we're at the point where it's like he can't even start games anymore.
Right.
Like, ugh.
That's an example of why I hate anyone being nicknamed Mini Insert Legend here. They're like Mini Pedro, like no, stop that, stop that immediately. That's why listen. I loved when Zadorov signed with the Bruins. And his nickname was Big Z. And he goes, never call me that ever again because I'm not Chara and I don't want that following me. Like some guys are aware of that. Like, don't ever nickname me that. Don't call me that, whatever. No, but Bale, I do think, every year they've kind of taken another step to diminish is probably too strong a word, but like to reduce his role and his expectations, right? Where 3 years ago, he was their opening day starter. And they're hoping he's going to be an ace, and they bring in Crochet. Okay, now he's down in the rotation. Then this year they bring in Ron Suarez. Okay, now he's even further down in the rotation. Like they've taken little steps here to kind of really reduce the expectations that are on his shoulders. And right now they're getting good ball out of him. And while I agree with Dean that the numbers have been good, they've been so good that, to your point, Jake, I kind of don't want to mess with it because that's the quickest way to undo it. And now you're like, all right, now he's back to not giving us what we need. And that really sucks because you don't want to wear out the arms you currently have.
Especially today, it was going to be a bullpen game. So, like, you had to make do with what you had. And Bayo did enough. I mean, they didn't win the game, obviously, and that, that's unfortunate for them and ending the streak and all that. But if there was going to be any game in the series that you were going to lose, it was going to be this one. So last night's kind of the one where you're like, especially because they kind of felt like they had momentum building in that ninth inning last night, and they couldn't get it done. So, yeah, I just think with Bayo, it is what it is with him. Not someone that you're going to want to, hitch your wagon to for long term, past, a few years down the road. But if you can be a reliever, like, what if next year Crochet comes back and he looks good, he's part of the rotation, you have a very good starting rotation, and so much so that Bayo moves to a reliever? Like,
right.
Wouldn't that make more sense for him, for his career, how it's gone so far?
It would. I mean, he would definitely. If he's not going to be a reliever, he's your number 5 starter at this point, right? If you have Crochet, you have Sonny Gray, you have Suarez, and you have Tolley, the options for him are number 5. That's what it is. And if it's not number 5, it's bullpen. So what do you want? Do you want more consistent work out of the bullpen, or do you want to be the number 5 starter who, if all goes well in October, you're moving to the bullpen anyway because we're not going to start 5 guys in the playoffs. So what do you want to do? And so it's a great question. It's right now. It's just, I think you have to be mindful of the workload for certain guys. And if Bayo can continue to be a bulk inning guy and give you 3 or 4, that's almost more valuable than anything he'd give you as a starter, I think, because Jake, you have to look at what they have right now with their bullpen. With their starting rotation. You have Sandoval, who's working back from Tommy John, so you don't want to overtax him. You have Peyton Tolley, who ran into the innings wall a year ago and is currently on pace to do that once again, so you got to be mindful of that. You traded Connolly early, so you don't have that reinforcement behind you. Jake Bennett is a younger pitcher. He's probably going to be on an innings watch as well. And you want Suarez to be at his best in the playoffs, so you're probably going to want to keep him, at a lower kind of number. And so I think those Bayo innings are huge for them right now.
Oh, absolutely. And the other thing too is goes back to why the start of the year hurts them so much, is that now that they look like a postseason team, they can't take time off and just kind of take their foot off the gas because they were so far behind the 8 ball because of that horrible start that they can't just give Suarez the day off, say, hey, we're going to skip your start and let you come back, because they need that start. They need to win these games, and they need to keep on moving forward with it. And for any pitcher, too, that matter, that they have in the rotation. So that might be the one thing that derails them this year. Mm-hmm. That could be the thing that ends it. And whether Crochet comes back or he doesn't come back, maybe we got too far ahead of ourselves saying that he could be a reliever, because maybe they really do need him in that rotation to really kind of cement that. But regardless of what happens with it, does today concern you at all with them losing this to this team in this series the way they did it? And now this is back-to-back games where they had a chance to at least tie it in the 9th inning, and they didn't do it in both times. Is that, I don't want to say, because maybe concerning is too strong of a word, but do you feel like that's a regression to the mean, starting to see maybe they're not really this incredibly great team?
I mean, yes and no. I think that how they look against Toronto is going to be really telling. Toronto, I know that they've sort of waved the white flag to a certain degree, trading Kevin Gausman, but that's a team that is 3.5 games back at the final wild card spot. You are 8.5 games ahead of them, I believe, but they've won 7 of the last 10. Toronto has, and now you're going to enemy territory. They are playing playoff baseball right now. They need every win they can get, and so I think that they've earned. They have the grace period of a series loss, right? You got to give them that because of how good they've been and how they've played against teams that are winning their divisions. Chicago, LA, they've looked good against those teams in the last week and change, and so I think they've earned the benefit of the doubt for one series loss. But if this extends into Toronto, that's when you can be like, you're not there yet, guys. Don't take your foot off the gas pedal here. You gotta establish more of a lead here. You gotta keep it pushing. And so I want to see how they look against I almost said the Maple Leafs, the Blue Jays. If they can have a good series and bounce back, I think that that's a good team. I know they're under 500, the Blue Jays are, but that's a good baseball team. We saw that a year ago.
A lot of people have been asking me, the number one question I've got from people is this sustainable? How much longer can they go? And the one thing I kept saying to them was, well, let's just kind of see how it plays out. And I know that's like a terrible answer for radio, but and at the end of the day, when you look at it, they lost to a team that they were much better than. The Athletics they're one of the worst teams in baseball. But it really does feel like after the 15-game winning streak, I said, okay, now it's gonna reset. It's gonna go back to the average. We're gonna see them go back to being the 500 team, and then they didn't do that. So now I'm like, well, maybe I had this wrong. I could have been wrong about this, and maybe they are playing better. And then after the deadline, this is the first time where I was like, oh, they didn't win the series. Like that kind of hurts. Like I know, I think Lou Merlone, he said at the end of the final call last night, well, you can't sweep them all, but you got to come in and win tomorrow. Well, you can't win them all either, I guess now. Like, I don't know. I just think this Red Sox team, they've done so well. I don't want to discredit them for what they did, but I also go back to when they got hot and when they started winning. It's in the middle of the season and the All-Star break. Is that a sign of a good team? When you're getting all those wins clumped together at the All-Star break, I feel like that's a time where a lot of players and teams take their foot off the gas because they're getting to the break. They get some rest coming out of that as well. It could be a little iffy. And you got hot, and you've been hot since then. So, I don't know. There's something to kind of think about it and see how it develops. I think the Blue Jay series, you're right, will be a big test to see how they bounce back from the series.
Yeah, going back to late June rather. They are 5-2 when coming after when playing after a loss, and so they've had an ability to bounce back here. And so you do want to see that. You do need to see that. Yeah, to your point though, like this is not a series you want to lose at home. It's just like you're a much better team.
Damper in the last week.
It is. It definitely is. And you touched on it, and that's something that I do want to ask as well. Like, is this a team that is just varying degrees of extreme, right? Where they were so bad in the beginning that management and upper management was saying, listen, we like where we can be once guys kind of pull themselves out of these career lows. They've been on the heater of all heaters for the last month and a half. Are we now going to see like what is their middle ground? We've seen them when they're really bad and really good. What's their middle ground? Is it slightly better than 500 or is it slightly under 500? We're going to find out.
I think we'd agree too that they're at their ceiling and that the floor is probably what it was in the beginning of the year. So you're right. Like, what is that middle ground? What does it look like when they're not at the hottest team in baseball? Can they compete still, or are they going to go back to what they were in May?
And this is when we look at guys that we were lauding out of the gate, Durbin, Monasterio. You look at them and say, all right, you've been good now for a month. Can you be good for 2 months? Can you be sustainable? Can you be someone that we look at and say, yep, don't got to worry here. We're good. Like, and who we bring back or who we call up is going to help you, not take away from you entirely. That's something as well.
And not just for this year too, like even years down the road, and if there is baseball in 2027, like you're going to want it. Like, it's important for these guys to finish strong, especially with no baseball in 27, because at least you can have some kind of momentum after the lockout whenever that ends, because we all know what's going to happen.
I don't want to talk about that. That's just such a bummer to be like, all right, see you in 2028, guys. That would suck. That would suck. Anyways, 617-779-0985. Another quick break here, and then more of your phone calls and more sports talk here. It is Jake Seymour. I am Ty Anderson. Take it until 5 p.m. here on 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports. 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Today. It is August. It is hard to talk Bruins in August, but we do have a call on the line. Jake in Andover with a thought about the Bruins. Jake, what's going on?
Hey, Ty. So, yeah, I called you like maybe, I think it was around June when free agency was finally getting started, or actually might have been right after the deadline. And we talked about there was the whole Darnell Nurse thing, and obviously there has basically been nothing really substantial at all. I think Sweeney might have fell asleep during the past 2 months. And, you know, I know Felger threw it in my face, well, they got J.J. Paterka. We got a 20-goal scorer. I said, yeah, and then we lost Victor Arvidsson.
Right.
So we traded a 20-goal scorer for a 20-goal scorer. So basically net, we haven't got better besides getting, again, was Connor Clifton back. Yay, another 5'10" defenseman that's a feisty guy. Are we just done at this point? Has there been any leaks or anything? Like, are we actually going to advance this team to be anything, or are we just going to pray and hope that Pasternak gets a 70-goal season and Geeky gets a 50-goal season?
No, it's a great question, Jake, and thanks for the call. Love to hear from you again. Miss you talking to you on Saturdays. Yeah, I do think that they're not done. If you talk to people in the league, they're going to tell you they're not done. What I would also tell you is that they have way too many redundancies right now and way too many defensemen and way too many forwards, and you can't play them all. You can't even roster them all. So that alone tells you they need to make a trade, but we are in August, and they still haven't made it. I know there's some talk with Seattle and Shane Wright. If that's a guy that's going to get moved, I'm not crazy about giving up a ton to get that player. I think he's kind of been disappointing in Seattle. But listen, I'll put it to you this way, to Jake in Andover and the Jake to my left. They have too many defensemen. You can't play this many defensemen. And so there should be a trade to be made there, whether that's Mason Lowry or Henry Jokiharju. And I would also say that you have too many forwards. Casey Middlestad is on your roster still, and you added Peterka, and you, in theory, should add James Higgins full-time to your roster. So you have too many guys in that spot. Alex Steves is still here. Mikey Asamont is still here. And so that alone tells me there's another move to be made for this team, but it still hasn't happened yet. And so, listen, if I'm making a trade right now, I'm packaging Lowry and I'm packaging Middlestad and I'm packaging, Steves or whoever as a throw-in, and I'm bringing in a more established middle six kind of winger. If you can get me another Arvidsson, I'm cool with that. Now, what I will tell you is that the Bruins moved on from Arvidsson because they don't want to roadblock power play minutes for a James Higgins or a Murad Husadinov or a Fraser Minton or, in late season next year, Dean Latorno, who's probably going to leave BC and turn pro. So they themselves acknowledge they're not a finished product. It's just what's that next move, because it has to happen between now and camp, or you're putting guys on waivers and potentially losing them for nothing.
So that's confusing me. They moved off a player, and they're going to bet on young prospects who are either with the team or still in college to then come up and make an impact.
Yes, which they've said it before, and then every time they've given it to like a veteran instead. Yeah. So forgive me for not fully believing that just yet. What I will tell you, and I don't think they're better. I don't think they're worse. I think they're at the very best incomplete. And so that part is frustrating, I think, as a fan, because you want to say, yep, we're better, or yep, they're worse. Like, you want to know where you are. You mentioned that middle ground. That's kind of where the Bruins are right now. And it's pretty frustrating, I think, for fans, because you want to pick a direction and you want to know where they're going. Now, the one thing that does give me confidence, and Jake brought it up, that they brought back Connor Clifton. They also traded for Will Borgen, a defenseman from the Rangers. What gives me a little bit of confidence with that is that a year ago, Marco Sturm had to make it work with players he inherited. This year, they went out and they got players. So that should tell me, or I would hope it would tell me, that Marco Sturm looked at those players and said, I can make it work with those guys. I want those players, right? And there's a difference when you're building a program versus, guys you inherited and guys you went out and wanted to bring in for your program. So I do wonder if that's going to make their defense better. I would argue, Jake, it can't get worse. They were so bad defensively a year ago in terms of high danger looks and slot chances and all that. They really got bailed out by Jeremy Swayman having a Vezina caliber year. But that gives me a little bit of confidence, at least right now here in August, that they may be slightly better defensively, which could make their team a little bit better as well.
So you feel like it's an unfinished product, it's not complete. So does that mean it's a bad offseason then, right? Because we're in August and we're talking about the Bruins not being complete?
I can tell you that I like the Peterka trade, and that I like the decision to move off from Andrew Peak and getting rid of the Korpisalo contract. I like all of those moves, but I don't think you did enough to elevate yourselves higher than a wild card team, which is what you were a year ago. And what I would also say to that point is that a team that missed the playoffs a year ago, the Washington Capitals, got, I think, a lot better. And so now they're chasing you as well. And you can say that, well, maybe Ottawa got worse, so that's one fewer team you have to worry about. Detroit is going to be worse than they were a year ago, and they were challenging up until game 78, 79. But they're the same. So if I'm grading the offseason, it's a C, which is not good enough. They needed a B kind of offseason. And so I like Peterka. I like getting rid of Korpisalo. I like getting rid of Andrew Peak. I was okay with moving off of Arvidsson because I think what you got from him a year ago was the best you were going to get out of him. But are you better than Buffalo? Are you better than Tampa? Are you on the same level as Florida? Florida is the team that we're all missing right now, too, because they were bad a year ago, and now they're reloaded as all hell, right? And so that's another team that's going to be in your way. And so I just think right now it was a C kind of offseason for the Boston Bruins.
Are there any moves that they can make to make it a B type of offseason? Like, is there anything out there that you feel like, okay?
Yeah, I out there might be kind of strong, but if you could call Philly and get Philly to move off Matvei Michkov or Owen Tippett, and those are two different trade packages, I fully acknowledge, but if you could get that kind of player, if you can get me another 25-goal scorer, I think it's a B. If you can get me that player, I'll even take a 20-goal scorer. If you can get me that kind of player and ease the logjam you have roster-wise, then yeah, it becomes a B kind of offseason because they're going to need more scoring because to Jake's point on the call, David Pastrnak is hitting that point where he is kind of openly saying, I need more help. I need more guys that can ease the scoring burden or the line burden off myself. And so Peterka's a step in the right direction. I think you need more than just one guy, though, to fill that void.
I've been kind of surprised. I follow the Bruins on more of a casual level, I guess, just because, I'm more one of those guys who I like watching playoff hockey, and I enjoy that a lot, and I like it when I can get fully invested in the Bruins and the playoff run and following all that. And I've been kind of surprised that because there's been such a lack of that over the last, 3 to 4 years, that we haven't got to the point yet where Pastrnak asks out or wants to be traded. Like, don't you feel like, I don't know, that's been a big surprise to me. Like, do you feel like that a possibility if this year goes poorly? Because he's getting older. Like, he's not a young guy anymore. Right.
I think you have to stop trying to make the Lindholm-Pastrnak thing happen. I think Elias Lindholm, not Hampus. I think Elias Lindholm and David Pastrnak have not been a fit, and I think Pastrnak would rather play with a Hagens or a Minton, and I think it's on the Bruins to make that happen because I think that's how you can keep Pastrnak happy. If you give Pastrnak a glimpse into the future of Minton or Hagens feeding him the puck, he's more like, oh, cool, I see what this kid can do. I'm in. I think if it's another year of 31-year-old Lindholm with a bad back being his center, he's going to be like, this isn't working, guys, and I've spent my 3 years, my prime now, trying to make it work with this guy who doesn't have it, and I can't carry him. Pastrnak did open the door to that. Whether or not he'll outright say it, he opened the door to that this past year where they lose Game 6 at the Garden, they're eliminated, and we're all at his locker after the game, and he says, I'm getting older. I want to get back to being in the Stanley Cup final. I want to get back to competing for cups. And I was like, ooh, that alarm, 1 through 5, that's a 1.5, And so to your point, if they take a step back, if they regress, does that go to a 3 now? Does that go to a 4 now? Because guys are not afraid to say, hey, it's not working and I want out. Pastrnak, I know people quibble about Pastrnak and they have problems with him. I want him on my team. I want him on my team every day of the week. He's too talented a player. You gotta provide help for that player, not get rid of that player, in my opinion. 617-779-0985. One more break, then the final segment. Jake, you brought up a great question, and I want to close the show talking about that here. It is Ty Anderson and Jake Seymour up until 5 p.m., 98.5 The Sports Hub.
Boston's home for sports, 98.5.
The final segment here. It's been a fun show, Jake. I've enjoyed this. It's our first time working together.
Yeah, it's good.
We've known each other for a long time. This is our first time working together.
High school.
That's wild.
School. Yeah,
that's
crazy.
wild.
I met you and you got me in contact with Jim when I was at the Super Bowl and all that. It's crazy.
I'm very happy to have seen that you have taken the step into this world of ours. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
But you, in the rundown today, you had a really interesting question, I thought. It was, what is the most risky move for the local teams? Is it the Bruins adding J.J. Peterka? Is it the Red Sox adding Adley Rutschman? Is it the Celtics adding Paul George? Or the Patriots adding A.J. Brown? It's your question, so I'm going to give you the floor to answer it first. What is the riskiest of these 4 moves for the local teams?
Yeah, I got to say Rutschman, because you're adding him mid-season. It's a acquisition at the deadline. So and he's a catcher, right? So can you mess with the pitcher? How does that whole thing work out? That's the one I have to go with. Because of that, I think A.J. Brown's probably the least riskiest because we all knew it was going to happen. And with the Mike Vrabel connection and how that was going to probably help bring him here and make him comfortable with the team. So, Those be my picks. I'm really interested to see how Rutschman plays out because I saw Milliken just tweeted out that per Ian Brown, Rutschman will fly to Toronto with the Red Sox tonight. Plan is for him to work out with the team tomorrow, and he could be active as soon as Tuesday.
Wow. Yeah, that jumping right in the fire with Rutschman. It's a good pick. I am actually going to pick Paul George because, right now he's a Celtic. We don't know if that's going to be the case in October, but if it is, it's a lot on a guy who's definitely on, I would say, hole 16 of 18 in his career at this point. And with Paul George, too, the Celtics are a Tatum injury away from a starting five of Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, Hugo Gonzalez, Paul George, and Nimi Keita or Mitchell Robinson, which is... Don't love that, not going to lie to you.
Good, Jim.
Yeah, just not what I really want. And so I got to go with Paul George there because you mentioned earlier they are spending the same amount of money on Paul George as they would Jaylen Brown, much different player. The other thing with Paul George, too, he had the suspension for the
PEDs.
The PEDs. He's also battled injuries of late. Not a player that's going to be around for 82 games a year. Just clearly not going to be. And so a lot of money. So the games that you are active for, the games you are playing in, you got to produce a lot. And I don't know if he can do that consistently at this point in his career. The least risky, I'm going to say JJ Peterka for what we just outlined in the segment prior. The Bruins don't have a lot of guys challenging for Peterka's minutes in his role. And so he's going to be power play one. He's going to play with Pasternak if they're trailing late in the game and they need a goal. He obviously has a relationship with the team to a certain degree. Kevin Adams was his GM in Buffalo, so he's going to know how to use him and get the most out of him. He's also a German, like their head coach. I think that will help as well. And so I think that's the least risky because the Bruins can't draft anyway, so who cares if they trade a first-round pick? Great. One less player I have to worry about not being an NHL player. That's fantastic. So that's what I'm going to pick. The A.J. Brown one, though, like that is interesting because I'm worried, man, that like I'm not worried, but if he has a game where, he gets one catch on 4 targets, what book does he pull out? I don't want to deal with that. Like I don't want to deal with. He only has 2 targets in the first half, so we're officially on a tale of mice and men watch here in the second half. See if he pulls it out. I need to know that he's going to be fully locked in, and so there's risk there. But there's risk in all 4 of these moves. I like the Rutschman pick, but I got to go Paul George because this team is not built to really deal with him not being an impact player. Jeff Williams, what's your pick of this 4?
Hold on, what was that?
Well, what's your pick of the 4? What's the riskiest move for the team? Peterka to the Bruins, Brown to the Patriots, Rutschman to the Red Sox, or Paul George to the Celtics?
I'm a Bruins guy, so Peterka to the Bruins.
You're concerned about Peterka?
Yeah.
Well, who's going to take his minutes? Tell me. Tanner Jeannot? Who's going to do it?
It's just not even like he's gonna put up points, but we're gonna just hear the same old crap. He can't play defense.
He can't play defense, for the record. He's so bad defensively, but I don't care. I don't care if you're bad defensively. You can't lose games 2-1. It sucks. I'm so in on Peterka, probably to my detriment, but that's okay. I mean, we'll see. The Bruins are going to be a team that somebody described
the team. I think
someone on TikTok described the Bruins as eternally competitive, and I was like, that's true, and it pisses me off because that gets you nowhere. Cool, you're either the 7th or the 9th seed every year. That's fantastic.
Great.
That's what I want to be. Jake, this was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah,
I had a really good time doing this. I hope you did as well. I hope everyone listening had a good time. I'm sorry the Boston Red Sox lost today. We're back in the mud, everybody. But it's going to be all right.
Can't sweep them all, can't win them all.
This was great. This has been the Sports Hub Weekend. We are the final show signing off for the weekend. You got Fox Sports Radio on the way. Do want to thank Jeff for producing. Jake, want to thank you again. This was a lot of fun. Let's do it again real soon. Have a great rest of your Sunday.
From the Town Fair Tire Studio, this is
Strong finger all up and go.
This is